Chapter 734. Octopus walked further and further away during the conversation with He Yuan. He had already arrived at the fire door in the middle of the corridor, covering half of his body. In this way, Luo Nan was more or less alone in the corridor of the inpatient department. It looked like the young man didn't care about the contents of Octopus's conversation. For him, the smooth wall in front of him seemed to be a unique pleasure. Octopus saw Luo Nan pointing at the wall in circles. It was as if there was a complicated drawing that needed him to identify and correct it. Yes, that was it. Luo Nan's fingertips weren't random. They were pointing and drawing in a specific area, seeming to be methodical. A smile appeared on his face as the pointing process progressed. It became more and more obvious, continuing to spread. It gave people the feeling that it was a carefree and refreshing feeling that came from the heart. It made people who saw it unable to refrain from laughing. But just by thinking about the corresponding reality, Octopus felt a chill seeping out from the deepest part of his bones bit by bit. It then turned into a sad and sour chilly wind, blowing at his internal organs and causing them to twist into a ball. F***ck me. Octopus slapped himself in the face. He Yuan could obviously feel such an unforeseen event. Her voice became extremely serious. You mentioned the coordinates? I told Horned Demon to contact the auction house. F***ck. For a time, Octopus didn't know what to do other than spitting out profanities at himself. What's his current state? Octopus gaped. He discovered that he couldn't describe it and he didn't want to. He could only open the Hexaear's shared perspective function and let He Yuan see for herself. Soon the other side was silent. A long time passed before she said, "You're a doctor. Do you think you can perform a mental test on Mr. Luo without him noticing?" This. Octopus was speechless. He Yuan couldn't find a better method in a short amount of time. She could only say, "I'll go consult Mr. Bai and notify President Ouyang and the others. You stay there and observe." The communication ended. Octopus stared blankly for a while before suddenly punching himself heavily in the chest. He was so vexed that he lost his sense of the changes in the outside world. He woke up with a start when someone called out to him. "Dr. Zhang." Ha! Octopus turned his head in shock and saw a beautiful woman who was half a head taller than him. A refreshing denim jacket paired with a pair of trousers made of the same material was very handsome and neutral. It was enough to entertain most men and a considerable number of women. But right now, Octopus wasn't in the mood to appreciate this. He was surprised and a little flustered. This was because this tall beauty was none other than Luo Nan's older cousin, the female rock singer Mo Ya. It's okay. The corridor is too stuffy. Octopus really wanted to slap himself in the face again. She didn't have a problem with you, so you were just poking at my sore spot. Out of politeness, Mo Ya did not pursue the matter further. In the past few months, Dr. Zhang Yuliang had been in contact with the family quite a few times and had given her grandfather a lot of extra care. After a while, they had become very familiar with each other. If he was in a bad mood, he might have been dumped by his girlfriend. Why use concern to stab him in the back? And in comparison, Mo Ya was a bit more concerned about her cousin. Luo Nan is here too. What's he doing? Waving at the air. Idea, let's start thinking about the painting. When he said this, Octopus almost couldn't control his emotions. His eyes and nose were dry, and he just wanted to find a secluded place to cry. Mo Ya gave him a couple of glances. Her eyes seemed to say, "Are you kidding me?" At this time, she finally felt that the atmosphere was a bit off. Her brows furrowed slightly and her gaze became much sharper. Octopus was an experienced ability user. When he saw that the situation was far from good, he used the powerful control of an ability user to carry out strict control over his expression and body. He revealed a professional smile towards Mo Ya. "It's so late. Miss Mo Ya still came?" "Yes. I'm going on a business trip tomorrow. It might be quite long, so I came to take a look. It's all thanks to Dr. Zhang for helping us pass the flexible visitation application. You're too kind. It's what I should do." When did Luo Nan come over? Around noon? I'm not too sure. I just got here. After a few awkward words, Mo Ya didn't see any more clues. Her expression didn't change either. She gave a slight bow and walked over to Luo Nan on the other side of the corridor. Was this luck good? Octopus looked at Amoya's back and a bit of expectation floated in his heart. He extended his hand to take off the glasses on the bridge of his nose and pinched the space between his eyebrows. He just hoped that his family's intervention would allow Luo Nan to jump out of his terrible state in time. On the other side of the corridor, Luo Nan wasn't clear about Octopus's mental activity. For reasons of secrecy, Luo Nan didn't allow his new psychic drawing work to appear outside. He only allowed it to be mapped on his retina for reference. The nature of the psychic drawing determined the richness and complexity of the imagery and information. Even though he had personally created it, he was always able to discover more details when he looked at it again. For example, on the silhouette of the giant wheel formed by Wu Jun's portrait and the perspective technique, there was a vague silhouette that appeared like fine gauze. It used to look like mist at night, but now it was clearly a fluttering cloak that shrouded every corner of the work. Was it the soul cape that I controlled? Or was it the sacred cloak of the Xia Luo order that led to this chain of events? Or perhaps there was a direct connection with his grandfather's crazy and persistent ravings. Luo Nan knew that there was an unreachable distance between him and the standard, successful people of society, when it came to intelligence and calculation. But then again, the schemes of these successful people relied on nothing more than their enormous and complex network of power and influence. They also relied on comprehensive intelligence and precise and in-depth analysis on this foundation. Luo Nan could only concede defeat on a conventional level when it came to these resources and abilities. But if he opened up a different path in the field he was good at, it wouldn't seem to be a bad thing? At the very least, the person who designed this treat plan could never have imagined that Luo Nan would use a completely unscientific method to grasp the corresponding omens and extremely crucial links the night before their plan was truly launched. The cape, Wu Jun, the horned demon, the coordinates of his grandfather's laboratory, the auction, and the information regarding maritime activities that Cat Eyes had obtained from the Wild Inn. It would require a lot of far-fetched imagination to link these elements together. But right now Luo Nan didn't need to imagine anything. Last night, he had already used an even more brilliant and mysterious method to perform an overall pre-reading. Right now he just needed to wait for time and the changes in the situation to catch up to the overly advanced pace of his psychic senses. Looking at the current stage, the opponent's every move was indeed on the predicted point. This sort of coincidence really made Luo Nan, a person with obsessive-compulsive disorder, feel completely satisfied. The sound of footsteps approached and Amoya's slightly raspy voice rang in his ear. "Congratulations! You've completely let go of yourself. I'm really sorry for missing the family meeting and not being the first to congratulate you." Luo Nan turned around and pursed his lips. "Even if you don't display the demeanor of an older sister, as the eldest daughter of the Mo family, is it really good for you to not share the worries of your parents? If you were there last night and spoke like this, I would have become a scapegoat. Do you think that would be better?" Amoya beamed as she reached out her hand and pinched Luo Nan's cheek. She had rarely done this sort of action in recent years. Luo Nan slapped her hand away in disgust. "You're in a good mood, huh?" "Same here. I saw you facing the wall just now and I really thought you were depressed. Luckily, I immediately rushed back to express my support when I heard the news that you were going to take a leave of absence from school. That's because I became a blocking target first." Having said this, Luo Nan finally expressed his doubts. "What are you doing here so late at night? Your band is on the verge of collapsing and your schedule is still this tight? Get lost." Amoya gave a light grumble and smiled in the blink of an eye. "I'm going on a business trip out of town tomorrow. I might be gone for a month or even longer. I'm coming over tonight to take a look." "Business trip? Aha! Our band is going to have a small fan club in Band City in 10 days. Band City? Luo Nan's gaze instantly focused. Amoya didn't notice anything else. Luo Nan's astonishment was very normal. After all, this announcement was a bit out of the norm. You know that the music market is much more mature in the East Asian cultural circle. The rock and roll environment is much better. You can say that we're expanding into the overseas market. Really? Luo Nan expressed his doubts. Nowadays, the 88 large metropolitan areas were all relatively closed off. Aside from those true world-class stars, the cultural industry was basically in a state of seclusion. A small star like Amoya, who had just made her debut, might not even be able to make a name for herself in Xia City, let alone Ban City, which was across the sea. It would be an extravagant hope for their debut album to break 100 sales figures there. Also, there were some other problems with her Mountain Creek band due to Shuei's departure. It was a complete mess right now. Would the management company approve of this kind of activity? Emoya shrugged. In any case, this is what the company said. And we have indeed found a partner over there. As long as we provide food, accommodation, and a return trip, we can do whatever they say. There are rumors that the company wants us to debut over there. Of course, if our families strongly oppose it, then it's a different matter. What use is family opposition? Ha! Luo Nan's eyebrows jumped. He suddenly understood. Emoya was giving him a report. After all, everyone in the family knew that Luo Nan had already entered a complicated circle. The atmosphere was still pervaded with tension a while ago. He was being watched both openly and secretly, both inside and out. Emoya appeared to be rebellious and casual, but she actually inherited her parents' strong points at the core. She thought things through thoroughly, and she was very good at considering problems from the standpoint of others. She bumped into Luo Nan tonight by accident, but she had to find the time to inform him of this matter no matter what. She also didn't want to become Luo Nan's burden. Luo Nan gazed at Emoya. He had a general grasp of his cousin's mentality. Honestly speaking, he cared a lot about the words, banned city, under the current circumstances. Perhaps this was a coincidence, but how many coincidences had he encountered in the past few days? He muttered to himself in silence. He went over Emoya's introduction of the situation in his mind once more, and suddenly discovered a certain incongruity. Hold on. The fan meeting is in 10 days. What are you doing there now? Chapter 735. Luo Nan didn't reply to Emoya in time. He needed to deliberate properly. Emoya didn't care, at least on the surface. She first went to the ward to see her grandfather and took over from Xiao Shenyu. After receiving the reward, Xiao Shenyu slowly walked out of the room. Luo Nan was truly grateful to this teacher. He temporarily set aside the matter of Emoya and went to greet him. Gym Master, I've really troubled you. I don't think it's troublesome. Xiao Shenyu's thin face was devoid of expression, but his tone was relaxed. Chatting with Mr. Yuan Dao is much better than being home alone. Luo Nan forced a smile. Only you. That's not entirely true. I can't say that Mr. Yuan Dao's mental state is very good, but as long as you grasp the core of his consistency, you will find many interesting things. There were a lot of things I had been thinking about, but I couldn't verify them. Even Mr. Yuan Dao didn't give a clear answer. It's good to be able to refer to it from a different angle. Xiao Shenyu's eyes moved slightly within his sunken eye sockets. He fixed his gaze on Luo Nan's face. You two are very similar in this aspect. Luo Nan took it as a compliment for the time being. Thank you, Gym Master. Octopus, who had caught up from behind, wailed in his heart. Don't be like him anymore, or I'll really have to hit my head against the wall to atone for my sins. Octopus was afraid that Xiao Shenyu would encourage Luo Nan to run wildly down the wrong path, so he braced himself and interjected. Gym Master Xiao came over this morning to accompany Mr. Luo. You have just recovered from a major illness. You can't be too exhausted. Luo Nan came to a realization. That's right. The gym master needs to recuperate. I'll head back right away. It's just a few steps anyways. Xiao Shenyu readily accepted Xiao Shenyu's advice. Luo Nan and Octopus followed by his side, preparing to send him to the elevator. As they walked, Xiao Shenyu was still talking about Luo Yuan Dao. Perhaps it was because he had interacted too much today, but he made a rare judgment. Unfortunately, you and Mr. Yuan Dao seem to have a conflict of logic. Mr. Yuan Dao is very sensitive and resistant to this, and refuses to communicate with you. Otherwise, you should be the one who understands him the most. Luo Nan believed it. I also have this feeling. Let's observe more and see if we can find a good entry point. Yes, I'll try drawing a portrait for Grandpa later. Portrait? Is that what you psychics call it? Yeah, pretty much. Octopus thought to himself, I've never heard of it. Xiao Shenyu was truly in a good mood. He spoke a lot more. As long as there is a possibility of affecting reality, we can try. In this aspect, you spiritual people have an advantage over physical people. You can imagine it, and we will verify it. Your assumptions can be overturned at any time, but the price we have to pay to verify them is much more tragic. So, I hope you can make more accurate judgments and designs. I'll be counting on you to help Xue Lei in the future. Luo Nan instinctively felt that the life experiences of the gym master should be hidden behind these words, not to mention that it involved Xue Lei. Luo Nan obviously wouldn't be slow. He responded very seriously. Don't worry, master. Xiao Xinyu nodded slightly and boarded the elevator. The closed metal door separated them from each other's line of sight, but Luo Nan suddenly thought that he could take a portrait of the gym master. He had always been curious as to how the dojo master ended up in such a state of being plagued by all kinds of illnesses with his martial arts cultivation. It was not until the night of New Year's Eve that they found out that it was a genetic problem. When the hospital basically ruled out congenital heredity, strong radiation, and other common factors, the situation became even more confusing. There were some things that were hard to ask, but it was fine to rely on his own observations. It was hard to say whether or not the psychic diagram could reach this step. But this method gave him a clear train of thought. It gave him the ability to grasp key elements. At the same time, it allowed him to examine his own chaotic consciousness. It would be better if he used it more often in the future. From his experiences in learning configuration, he could see that any ability required a large amount of concentration and continuous practice. He also needed precise reflection and feedback. He had the virtual brain system to support him in terms of configuration, so his progress was godly. The psychic diagram was also fine. He would look at the feedback in reality. If it was accurate, then it was accurate. If it wasn't, then it wasn't. If the facts were verified, then the follow-up steps of the treat-to-dinner plan would probably take several days. But if he just used the daily trifling matters around him to practice, he should be able to quickly receive feedback. Then he could layer upon layer, and the results would certainly be decent. Oh, Mr. Bai and the others had talked about some common practice techniques in the past, but there were some deviations from Luo Nan's reality. He needed to ponder over a practice plan that was more suitable for him. Though Luo Nan was blocked by the metal door of the elevator, it did not hinder his train of thought from flying and turning. To the side, Octopus's gaze moved back and forth between Luo Nan's face and the blurry mirror image on the elevator door. He subconsciously held his breath. Luo Nan finally felt Octopus's excessive attention. He turned to look at him. What's wrong? Ah! Octopus went, for quite a while, but he was unable to find a better reason in the end. He could only probe the key issue. Nanster, there's a lot going on today. You should rest early and let your mind empty. Luo Nan laughed. Oh, Brother Octopus, I understand what you mean. Actually, money is just an external object. I'm quite open-minded about it. At worst, I'll just hold a few lectures. Actually, my mind is very clear right now. Yeah, it should be said that it's unprecedentedly clear. There's certainly a way to solve the trouble in front of me. Octopus opened his mouth, but he was unable to speak in the end. Fine, whatever you say will be the truth. If he were to be provoked again, he didn't know how he would end up. Speaking of which, didn't he Yuan go consult Mr. Bai? A professional should hurry up and come. At this time, Octopus had completely forgotten that he was also a professional. His heart was filled with a feeling of powerlessness when facing Luo Nan. Luo Nan still carried a childish air in front of him, but he strove to think like an adult. Or perhaps it should be said that Octopus believed that he was an adult. He hoped to come up with a solution. But how could things be so easy in this world? The horned demons who had concocted all of this, as well as the powerful enemies who had been pressuring Luo Nan on various levels and angles, would not let Luo Nan go. Luo Nan might not be unaware of this, but he might have to forget a few problems and pressures. He would search for a panacea to heal his heart on a more free and fantastical plane. Seriously? Octopus turned his head and took 2 deep breaths. He knew that he couldn't let Luo Nan continue living in his fantasies. He knew that Luo Nan was wandering on the edge of a split personality, so he forcefully brought up another topic. I just heard you and Moya talking about benching, vacation, and whatnot. Are you planning on going out for a vacation? Luo Nan certainly didn't have such thoughts. But if there really was a way to relax, perhaps it wouldn't be bad to accompany his family on a trip? Oh, about that. The smile on Luo Nan's face faded a bit. At this time, in this situation, the coincidence that was not under his control was undoubtedly a type of disgusting element. He needed to properly think about it. He needed to investigate. It just so happened that he had rediscovered an investigative method that was most suitable for him. The portrait of his grandfather and gym master Xiao involved an in-depth exploration of the mental and material planes. It might be a bit too high-end right now, but the matter of Moya should be relatively simple. Moreover, it could be used as a supplement to the psychic drawing from before. Luo Nan's fingers twitched. He nearly wanted to draw a psychic drawing right now, but he knew that now wasn't the right time. He suppressed this impulse. Well, considering the complexity of the current situation, borrowing the resources of the society was a good choice. Right now Yuan wasn't by his side, so Luo Nan consulted Octopus. Bro Octopus, I feel that Moya's matter isn't too reliable. Ha! What do you mean? Luo Nan didn't mention any information related to the retreat plan, in case it was hard to explain later on. He just explained the current situation of the isolation of the cultural industry in every major city. Then he voiced his doubts. The drummer of my sister's band has already left the band. The replacement hasn't gotten used to it yet. They've lost a large chunk of their sales. And it's rock and roll, a niche genre. The so-called fan club is far too unreliable, including something about debuting again in Banqing. Does that management company think that throwing money into the ocean is very interesting? So you suspect? Octopus took another breath and raised his eyebrows. He took off his gold-rimmed glasses, and his gaze turned fierce and fierce. Someone's up to something. Luo Nan never expected Octopus to have such a big reaction. He even subconsciously looked back. It's just a suspicion. After all, there are many things in the field of entertainment that involve throwing money and listening to the music. I just want to understand. If we exclude the normal business activities of the company, is it possible that there's someone in the background who's paying for it? Some other scheme. Does our society have connections in the entertainment circle? It would be best if we could inquire about it. Having said this, Luo Nan suddenly recalled that Ming Tang culture, which Moya belonged to, had the backing of the Castle Financial Group. And this financial group was actually the cornerstone of the Blood Flame Order's industry in the secular world. At the end of last year, the Blood Flame Order, headed by Lady Holder, had a conflict with a branch of the Control faction that had split off. This was because the Control faction had been operating in the military for many years, and they also had Tianbang, a great killing machine. Lady Holder's branch was no match for them. She was forced to withdraw from Xia City, and her industry suffered great damage. There was a period of time when she wanted to sell off Ming Tang Culture subsidiary companies that had strong geographical restrictions. This was to avoid even greater losses. But later, in order to maintain the diversity of communication channels with Luo Nan, the plan to sell off the company was scrapped. This was what Lady Holder had personally told Luo Nan. Luo Nan didn't understand or care about how Lady Holder controlled her industry. He only knew that the Blood Flame Order still had a considerable amount of control over Ming Tang culture. This was a very good entry point. Of course, Luo Nan wanted to know what kind of results the psychic diagram would show. On the other side, Octopus used his greatest strength to control his fingers. He stuffed his glasses into the pocket of his white coat to prevent them from shattering. He did his best to maintain a smile. Nanster, don't worry. We can't do anything outside of Xia City, but we're in our own territory. If some bastard wants to play dirty tricks, we'll let them understand what it means to be too late for regrets. Okay. Luo Nan felt that Brother Octopus was quite excited. He went to make a call after he finished speaking. He called his friends and dispatched them left and right. He was more attentive than his own cousin. Could it be that he was a fan of Moya? Or was he interested in Moya? Could this sister's charm be able to invade the inner world? Luo Nan's consciousness shifted when he thought of Moya. He didn't need to use his eyes to see Moya. He even had a conversation with his grandfather. She was proficient in the art of speaking. Her tongue was quick and nimble. She would occasionally make the old man laugh. This was something that Luo Nan, who had a logical conflict, was unable to do. Luo Nan couldn't help but feel envious. He sighed. Chapter 736. Reality proved that some things still existed on the ideal level. They were more in line with human thinking and emotional tendencies. Luo Nan drew psychic diagrams for most of the night. He only fell asleep in the wee hours of the morning. He had a rare dream because his thoughts were too active. He was awakened by the vibration of the hexa ear in this state. He opened his eyes. The sky was just beginning to brighten. He hadn't slept for more than 2 hours. Luo Nan didn't see who the person was. He answered the call in a daze. The voice on the other side carried an unconcealable sense of dejection. We've more or less investigated clearly. Xia City is very clean. It's purely Ban City that's throwing money. They won't give us the chance to get involved easily. Ah, bro octopus. Luo Nan was able to distinguish who the person was now. He spent 2 seconds to connect Octopus's words with last night's situation. Yes, Octopus had volunteered to investigate the driving force behind Moya's trip to Ban City. The results were out now. Should he say that he wasn't surprised at all? Of course, no matter how bad Luo Nan's EQ was, he wouldn't say such stupid things. And he really did need detailed information on Octopus. He needed to compare it with the vague image of the psychic diagram he drew last night. What's the specific situation? Oh, wait a moment. Let me clear my head. Luo Nan closed his eyes and slightly adjusted the flow of his blood. He waited for the drowsiness in his mind to dissipate before speaking. Bro Octopus, continue. Octopus had been restraining his emotions this entire time. He weighed his words over and over in order to avoid giving Luo Nan any negative influence. We looked up the relevant calendar. The announcement of the fan club was nominally a part of the Ban City Music Festival. The event itself is formal. It is held every year. It also invites all the famous bands and musicians from all over the world, including some up-and-coming rock bands. Mountain Stream shouldn't be qualified, right? Yes. From what we understand from industry insiders, new bands like Mountain Stream definitely don't have the qualifications to receive an invitation. But they can participate at their own expense and make a name for themselves. Luo Nan sighed. But now someone is paying for them. No one can refuse. So who's paying? Lean Century is a well-known music company in Sakura City and even the world. It's a big shot in the industry and one of the biggest sponsors of the Sakura City Music Festival. Octopus's voice finally sounded a little more distressed. Lean has done a watertight job. This year, they had indeed played a game of throwing money around. In addition to the industry bigwigs that they had invited every year, they had also appointed 3 new bands from each of the 88 metropolitan areas around the world to sponsor their trip to Banqing for free. Completely corporate behavior. Through normal channels. Yes, that's the crux of the matter. Through the investigation of the flow of funds and the consultation of the people who handled it, we can basically confirm that Ming Tang culture, where Moya was from, only saw it as a pie falling from the sky. They went with the flow and were completely in a subordinate position. Luo Nan let out a sigh. I feel like I'm being overly sensitive. No. These are extraordinary times. We can't be too careful. Moreover, there's another news about Mountain Stream's debut in Banqing. Oh? Is there really such a thing? It can only be said to be a rumor, but it's true enough. According to a mid-level employee of Ming Tang culture, most of the bands that Lin appointed as sponsors are actually underground bands. In other words, they aren't signed to a company. It's very likely that Lin will select a few of these bands and sign them to a management contract. Mountain Stream originally had the genes of an underground band. Even though they've already signed with Ming Tang culture, it's very likely that Lin will take over if they're really interested. As long as the price is right, Ming Tang culture won't refuse. Luo Nan grasped the crux of the matter. Why would they be interested? This. Octopus hesitated for a moment before saying, it's just a rumor. Last month, a director of Lin called Yuchuan Aishuk came to Xia City and saw Mountain Stream's performance. He seemed to be very interested. What's Yuchuan again? Yuchuan Aishuk. He's a well-known figure in the industry. He also has the support of his family. He's rich and powerful. Luo Nan went straight to the sensitive part. Is he interested in the band or is he interested in a certain person? I don't know about that. In any case, after he went back, Mountain Stream's name appeared on the newly released sponsor list. It said that Mountain Stream is the only band out of the 261 sponsored bands outside of Ban City that have a signed company. Yuchuan Aishuk. Luo Nan was certain that he remembered this name. Is this fellow related to the inner world? Based on the current intelligence, there are basically no traces of him in the inner world. But at their level, even if they lack extraordinary talent, they are basically inextricably linked to this side. Moreover, Ban City is one of the regions with the weakest barrier between the mortal world and the inner world among all the large metropolitan areas. Various orders and gangs are like weeds in every corner. With these as a cover, the influence of extraordinary powers can be considered to be a wild growth. Understood. Luo Nan already had a plan in mind. Octopus spoke again. I'm afraid there's nothing to investigate here in Xia City. It'll take a while for news from Ban City to arrive. When is Moya leaving? She's leaving this afternoon at 2 o'clock. But her idea of traveling came too suddenly. There's still a bunch of paperwork to be done. She'll be going to the pier in the morning. Oh, has she arranged for bodyguards? Bodyguards? Luo Nan really hadn't considered this point. He was originally thinking that if Moya's trip was completed, he could rely on the entire world's mental sensor network to monitor the entire process. If something were to happen, he and Rue Wen could join hands and fight against extraordinaries. Moreover, Moya was the only one allowed to go to Ban City. Why couldn't he go? Octopus still stood on the traditional line of thinking. He strongly recommended that Luo Nan hire bodyguards. For the sake of safety, sending professionals to protect is a very normal matter. Right now, the situation is unclear. Naturally, everything needs to be planned out. Plus, this way, it'll be suitable to express our attitude. Oh, it's just like in ancient times. Yelling a few times when there's nothing to do. Octopus choked. That's right. Professionally speaking, it's best for bodyguards to be a dual configuration of the physical and mental side. This way, both the meat shield and radar are present. Secretary He, Mr. Giant Arm, and Mr. Zhong Ji have plenty of candidates. If you feel that a male is inconvenient, there are also excellent female candidates. Cat eyes. Luo Nan blurted out. This time it was Octopus's turn to be stupefied. He didn't expect Luo Nan to pick people so quickly. But after some thought, he felt that it was extremely good. That's right. Cat Eyes is one of the best radars. She's also an insider. She can be of help. In this case, finding a meat shield will be fine. Luo Nan grunted twice, but he was thinking that if Cat Eyes went to Ban City, there would be many places that could help him cover up. It would be much more convenient for him to act there. Unfortunately, he couldn't find a second person like this in Xia City. Well, he couldn't find a second person with a similar abnormal relationship. Cat Eyes is such a lazy fellow. You'll need to personally tell her about this. Octopus's voice was a bit erratic. Luo Nan responded logically, Oh, that's natural. Then let's count Cat Eyes as one. I'll go contact Secretary He and the others. I'll compile a list of names for you to decide by noon. Alright, 2 people is just a basic configuration. If you feel that it's not safe, then 3 to 5 people is normal. You don't need to worry about the expenses. We'll take care of everything. I'm hanging up now. Octopus was really full of energy. He went to do things in a hurry. Luo Nan sat on the edge of the bed and pondered a bit. He clearly organized the information he learned from Octopus. 10 seconds later, he let out a long breath. His mind relaxed, and the changes in the energies of all living beings within a 30-kilometer radius formed simple sketches. They appeared in his mind like an animation. His mind naturally focused on the family area. The sketches turned into clear and concrete images. He could see his uncle preparing breakfast in the kitchen. His aunt was in Moya's room, helping her pack her luggage while giving her orders. Moya was fed up from listening to them. She simply ran to the side to make a phone call. It was as if they were traveling companions. As for Mo Pang, he was awake, but he was curled up on his bed playing games. These scenes combined to form a familiar and tireless scene. Perhaps under his pen, in the unrestrained psychic map, this was nothing more than a simple silhouette symbol, but this symbol was engraved at the very core, intertwined with his life, and could not be separated. Naturally, he didn't allow any malicious intent to touch it. Luo Nan's gaze was deep and cold. He opened up the virtual work area and looked at the results of last night's labor. It was quite marvelous. He had clearly used Moya as a clue to trigger events, But Mo Ya's shadow wasn't present in this picture. The elements that appeared included the silhouette of the city's steel jungle. There was also the shadow of a towering ancient tree. There was also a special silhouette that appeared twice. A luxurious cruise ship cruising on the ocean. All right, he could basically confirm it with this. The other side's treat plan was quite persistent. They wanted to get Luo Nan on board by every possible means. Speaking of which, this couldn't be considered a treat. Luo Nan was also picking at words last night. Aside from drawing, he specifically went to look up the word guest. But the word that gave him the deepest impression wasn't the word guest itself. It was another word that had a similar meaning to this word. Guest. Guest could be called together, but guest meant respect. Guest meant destination. The two were symmetrical. The guest was respected and the guest was humble. The guest was big and the guest was small. The one who formulated the treat plan certainly didn't treat Luo Nan as a VIP. Instead, he only treated Luo Nan as a forceful invitation to achieve a certain goal. In short, the other side lacked respect for Luo Nan. This didn't really matter, but if this disrespect was spread to Luo Nan's family and friends, then they could need as they pleased. Then it was no wonder that Luo Nan wanted to establish the proper respect. Luo Nan let out a long breath. He got up and got off the bed. He stood barefoot on the floor. His gaze passed through the window lattice and cast towards the bright eastern horizon. The mist that came from the ocean unfurled and changed under the illumination of the sun. It was suffused with multicolored light. Chapter 737. Unbeknownst when, the thick clouds had rolled over the mountains in the northwest direction, looming over the surface of the sea. It was as if a great army was pressing down on the border. But in the blink of an eye, it turned into rags riddled with holes. It could not contain the abundant water vapor above the clouds, causing them to pour down in large amounts, forming an overwhelming downpour. It also enveloped the entire cruise terminal in a misty mist. Luo Nan yawned. All right, the traditional event of waving goodbye is over. Emoya glared at him. It's not the first voyage. Where did all this nonsense come from? Both of them were right. Even though there was an enclosed viewing platform at the pier, no one on the cruise ship would be in the mood to perform a sailing ceremony in the pouring rain. It was 12:15 in the afternoon, and Emoya had spent a lot of time going through the formalities. At this time, she had just finished checking her luggage and was waiting to board the ship. Her pace suddenly slowed down. Since it was a working day, Luo Shuqing was the only one who came along, aside from Mrs. Luo Shuqing, who took a special leave of absence to accompany her. Furthermore, most of his attention was still focused on flipping through the bodyguard information uploaded by the Psychic Wave Network and making his final decision. Don't worry about the details. It doesn't make a difference whether it's 2 or 3. Wild Jujube was a female, so she could follow the boat here. Because God needed to equip himself to clear the level, he could fly directly to Ban City. Add in cat eyes, the radar meat shield, and the firepower support. It'll be perfect. We'll do as you say. That wild Jujube is already at the dock, right? Okay, I see her. Luo Nan gave a slight nod to the muscular and beautiful woman who had just gotten up from the waiting area 30 meters away. He recognized the deep and reserved aura on her body. It could be said that he was acquainted with her, and he established a communication link with her. Wild Jujube was indeed a professional. He was already in the zone, quietly approaching and entering his work position. Of course, he still had to inform Emoya about this, but he could only do so after they arrived at Sakura City. Did you see someone familiar? Mrs. Luo Shuqing turned her head to talk to Luo Nan. She saw Luo Nan's gaze shift, so she asked in passing. Luo Nan was just about to deny it when a familiar silhouette really did appear in his field of vision. Moreover, the silhouette was walking straight in his direction, even raising his hand in greeting. Luo Nan subconsciously looked at the bodyguard's information. He scanned the entire list, but he was still stupefied. This person isn't here. Aunt Qing Emoya. The woman who came over took the initiative to greet him. She was tall and wore a short shirt and trousers just like Emoya. However, she wore a thick long-sleeved shirt inside and a wide-brimmed hat on her head. She looked like a veteran backpacker who could travel to the wilderness at any time. Before Luo Nan could respond, Luo Shuqing laughed to the side. Tang Yi, you haven't been home much these past few years. That's right, Aunt Qing. It's because I'm running around with my teacher. This time, you guys have to take care of each other. Don't worry, Aunt Qing. Luo Nan made a deep self-reflection as he looked at the three people chatting and laughing. Was I too much of a homebody these past few years? But right now, the more crucial question was, when did Tang Yi and Peony, his former mission partners, return from Spring City? Why did he suddenly appear at the pier of the cruise ship? Moreover, he seemed to be very familiar with Mo Ya and Luo Shuqing. Let me go through the details. Luo Nan vaguely found a few verifiable clues from the disorderly events, but before he had time to organize them, the bodyguard Wild Jujube had already reported in a low voice. Mr. Luo, this person is Miss Mo Ya's roommate on the ship. He has already passed the risk assessment. Is there a problem? There might not be a problem, but even the society had overlooked an insider under their noses. Her Majesty Empress Wu's capable right-hand man really wasn't easy to deal with. It's nothing. He's an acquaintance. Luo Nan decided to go back and communicate with Her Majesty Empress Wu. Right now, it was more urgent to communicate with Tang Yi herself. He took a deep breath and cast his gaze, drawing Tang Yi's attention. President Tang, there's something I want to consult you about. Mrs. Luo Shuqing was very surprised. Little Nan and Tang Yi know each other? Luo Nan grinned. Yeah. She's his direct superior. Tang Yi smiled. Luo Nan joined the Mystic Arts Research Society at school. I'm an old member there. Due to some personnel changes recently, I temporarily took over the position of president. Of course, it's just in name. Oh, that's quite a coincidence. It's all thanks to this. There's something I want to consult President Tang about. Just call me Big Sister. You don't need to be an outsider. Tang Yi smiled as she took advantage of Luo Nan, but she cooperated with him and walked to the side. Luo Nan adjusted his breathing and decided to cut off all the branches and leaves. He got straight to the point. Well, let's talk about complicated relationships later. Let me confirm something first. Peony, you don't have any missions on hand, right? I've been on a business trip in Spring City for half a year. Whether it's my instructor or my boss, it's reasonable for them to give me some time off. Luo Nan stared at her. It's fine as long as you're not on a business trip. No matter what, we're partners. You and my sister are best friends, so there are some things I don't need to say. Relax. If there really is a mission, I won't let Moya get caught up in this maelstrom. But I heard that you've been plagued with troubles recently. You're in debt, and you've implicated Moya. You're still under pressure right now. What? You're not happy to have a free bodyguard delivered to your doorstep? The news spread that fast. Of course. Zhang Yingying ran to the big boss's office. She wanted to pay for the matter with the horned demon, but she was thrown out. I'm just joking. Don't feel burdened. Tang Yi revealed a mysterious smile. Then she changed the topic. But there's one more thing. Shouldn't you think about it carefully? What is it? Right now the word in the society is that you're going to take a break from school soon, right? That's right. In theory, a suspended member doesn't have the qualifications to occupy the society's public assets. Right now, there are quite a few people who are itching for a fight over your laboratory on the third floor beneath Gear on the North Bank. They want to seize the opportunity to take it back. Hey, I've had a lot of worries lately. Partner, can't you share some of my worries? I said it before. I'm just a nominal president. I'm able to get to this position because I'm quite qualified. Also, I hold shares of the LCRF. Hold on. Why is it the LCRF? The LCRF was the Life Cycle Research Fund. From Luo Nan's understanding, it was basically an amalgamation of the interests of various large capitals, military, and political powers. To put it in a harsher way, it was built upon the delusion of a group of old men intent on living forever. Why was Her Majesty Empress Wu getting involved? It's because the big boss has a stake there. In order to show respect, they basically seek the boss' opinion on every investment in Xia City and give him a seat on the board of directors. You can go ask Yingying. She's a board member of many companies, even though she practically never goes there. It's that cool? This is respect. Let's not talk about the three giants of Xia City. Old man Yu aside, President Ouyang has a large number of technology companies fighting to give him shares. Otherwise, where would the expenses of researching the psychic wave network come from? If he wanted to update his equipment right now, all he needed to do was leak the news and everyone, including Quantum Corporation, would come crying and shouting for supplies. Do you believe it? I believe it. You're quite respected right now. Big Sis has bodyguards when she goes out. She even comes up to help for free. These are extraordinary times. Luo Nan's lips twitched. He didn't believe this to be a good thing. And the respect he hoped for wasn't limited to just this. Enemies like President Ouyang and Her Majesty Empress Wu would come rushing to express their goodwill. Admittedly, this was because of the unscrupulous nature of capital. But weren't Luo Nan's greatest opponents also unscrupulous fellows? You're looking forward to it. Aha! Luo Nan responded straightforwardly. I don't know when I'll be like Her Majesty Empress Wu and President Ouyang. Luo Nan was currently experimenting in this area. He didn't know what kind of results his design would have in the end. Perhaps true respect would only come after he became an extraordinary? It was useless to think about these things. He just needed to do it bit by bit. At this time, his aunt called out from afar, "What are you guys chatting about for so long? Don't delay Sister Tang Yi and the others from boarding the ship." Yeah. It's just some club matters. Don't you want to take a break from school? Luo Nan quickly gave Tang Yi a meaningful glance, but he was too busy giving her a meaningful glance. He spoke too quickly and touched upon Mrs. Luo Shuqing's reverse scale. He received a death glare and choked for a moment. It took him great effort to continue. I won't be using that laboratory much in the future, so I need to reorganize it. I need to divide it into areas for the club to take over. Sigh. A lot of the equipment is sponsored by the school and investors. There are also some raw materials and the like. There are a lot of accounts that need to be dealt with just the handover. It's impossible to finish it in a day or two. In the end, Mrs. Luo Shuqing favored her nephew the most. From her perspective, it didn't matter how mischievous Luo Nan was in his studies or how dangerous the circle he entered was. Luo Nan's painstaking effort was the reason why the laboratory was able to attract so many investments. It would be too much of a pity if it were to be disturbed. She immediately opened her mouth to help. Tang Yi, regarding the matter of the laboratory, can you be a bit more flexible in terms of time? It's not that easy to handle the procedures for taking a break from school. Tang Yi smiled. She didn't even glance at Luo Nan. She found the feeling of being a partner. Don't worry, Aunt Qing. I still have a bit of influence in the club. Luo Nan isn't an outsider. I'll do my best to relax my time. Actually, the time I've been away on vacation is pretty good. It'll take half a month to go back and forth. I'll mention it to the club right now. Luo Nan just needs to bury himself in organizing. Even if the club has objections, they'll have to wait for me to return. When the time comes, I might be able to buy a bit of time. What do you think? Luo Nan gave Tang Yi a big thumbs up in his mind. She really deserved to be called the best partner. These few short sentences had bought him a lot of free time. Luo Nan immediately straightened his body and spoke in a loud voice. There's no need for Sister Tang Yi to make things difficult for me. I'll make the best use of my time to sort things out. I'll strive to finish everything before you return. So he had to eat and live in the laboratory. Occasionally, he would have to go out and negotiate with people. In this case, he would show his face once every 3 to 5 days and disappear for the rest of the time. Wasn't that very normal? Right now, the biggest problem had been solved. Moya cast her gaze over to Luo Nan and Tang Yi's face. She was quite amused. Luo Nan curled his lips. You've gone through so much trouble. What are you probing for? Moya glared back at him. She actually blinked and lowered her head to look at her watch. It's almost 1 o'clock. We've requested to board the ship an hour earlier. If you keep being long-winded, we'll probably have to jump onto the ship. Luo Shuqing glared back at her, but she turned to reveal a smile at Tang Yi. Luo Shuqing could see that her impression of Tang Yi was quite good. Of course, there was also the factor of Luo Nan. Tang Yi, since you're going to travel, you should properly relax. Take care of each other with Moya. When you come back, come to our house more often to play. Okay, Aunt Qing. I'll urge Mo Ye to report that she's safe and sound every day. Tang Yi responded calmly. She nodded her head in farewell. Then at Qing Jr. Luo, I'll see you later. The two great beauties, both over 180 centimeters in height, didn't say anything more. They turned around and walked toward the boarding gate. Their tall and slender figures were simply like models walking the streets. They even talked about some topic in the middle of the conversation. Luonan could see them look at each other and laugh loudly. They were both candid and lively. It was indeed pleasing to the eye, causing the surrounding men to frequently turn their heads. Luonan scratched his head. He felt a bit baffled, but he quickly shifted his attention. His gaze swept past Wild Jujube, who was following behind Mo Ye. It also passed through the transparent walls of the boarding hall and the misty rain. It swept past Cat Eyes, who had already boarded the ship on the 5th deck. Luonan's mental sensing network confirmed that there were no suspicious characters among the 5,000 to 6,000 people on the entire cruise ship. He could relax for the time being. At the very least, he could wholeheartedly do his own things during these 5 days on the sea. He could also make preparations for the more troublesome situation that would follow. There was a time difference of an hour. Night had already fallen in Ban City. The wind and rain on the other side of the ocean didn't stir up the slightest ripple here. Yinlu boarded North Mountain Lake. It was said that several decades ago, this was the location of the ancient capital of the island nation. The ancient capital was originally built next to a mountain. During the Third World War, the capital was destroyed by both the war and the earthquake. More than half of it was submerged by the silt of the lake water that gushed out from the deep mountains 100 kilometers away. Then the seawater flowed back, forming a brand new swamp zone that spanned an area of several hundred square kilometers. Thus, the blue sea turned into mulberry fields. The mountain peaks of this region became islands, scattered across the surface of the lake. It was said that when the weather was good, one could overlook the lake from the island. One could even see the ruins of the lake's bottom. Yinlu didn't come here to admire the scenery. She chose this place because it was the most convenient area for her to do things in the northern end of Ban City. She had arrived in Ban City 2 days ago. Most of the dozens of hours had been spent here. Now that the project was finally completed, all the machinery and personnel had left the site in advance. As far as her eyes could see, there were almost no particularly obvious changes. The buried metal pile foundation and frame structure were integrated with the surrounding rocks and vegetation. It couldn't be said to be ingenious, but it was solid and hidden enough. She looked down at her watch. It was almost time. Everything had been done according to that gentleman's request. What would happen next? Before she could finish her thought, there was a buzzing sound in the void. The air trembled clearly, as if it was resonating with her body. A clear numbness was transmitted from her lips and cheeks to her internal organs. An invisible pressure pushed her back 2 steps. A whirlwind appeared on the flat ground in front of her. Dust and grass flew everywhere, obscuring her vision. She wanted to get closer to take a closer look, but the sudden appearance of lightning and fire formed a barrier, blocking her way. She was shocked. She instinctively stood up straight, looked down, and stood still. All the strange sounds and phenomena ended after 10 seconds. What replaced them was the clear sound of breathing. Yinlu was stunned. She couldn't help but look up. She saw a 16 or 17-year-old youth dressed in casual clothes. He looked like a tourist who had come to play. He looked all around, curiously sizing up the rippling surface of the water. So this is Ban City? Yinlu recognized this person. He looked almost the same as when they first met half a year ago. However, Yinlu had long since lost the mentality she had at Frost River Reality. She only bowed deeply to the youth in front of her. Chapter 738. Luonan didn't speak. Yinlu bowed and didn't get up, just like a statue. She really needed some buffer time. Even though she had already guessed it, Yinlu still needed to digest Luonan's method of traversing 2,000 kilometers of space to appear before her eyes. Only then was she able to calm her surging mind. Of course, there were spatial shifting techniques in the extraordinary domain. There were at least 10 mental extraordinaries who were proficient in this path. One of them was the veteran Deputy Secretary General of the Ability User Society, Gong Qi. However, the shifting techniques of these people were built on the foundation of pure soul bodies. It was similar to the concept of astral travel in classical Eastern metaphysics. Luo Nan relied on a few metal foundations that couldn't be seen to realize his fleshly body shifting. Regardless of how it was realized in theory or technology, the energy consumption of material shifting alone was probably an astronomical figure. Yinlu used the configuration of the Blood Soul Temple to sense the current state of the abyss area. Turbulent currents were indeed swirling and turbulent. The chaotic storm was clearly in a state of interference. However, it was far too conservative compared to the estimated scale. The easiest logic to understand was that the same effect consumed less energy, the higher the technique. This sort of supernatural method was not as straightforward as the tyrannical storm, but the more she thought about it, the more inconceivable it became. How could Luo Nan, who could wander tens of thousands of kilometers at will and easily shift his fleshly body, be summarized by the title of genius theorist of the mental side? It must be known that omnipotence was omnipotence in a certain sense. Yinlu didn't expect that she would think so much during the time she was bowing. Luo Nan didn't pay attention to her at all. She raised her head in astonishment and saw Luo Nan operate with his fingers. He had just finished sketching in the air when he turned to smile at her. "Wait a bit." Ripples rippled through the air as soon as he finished speaking. A metal chest half the height of a person bounced out from the depths of the dark night and fell with a whoosh. Luo Nan's soul strength interfered slightly, allowing this big fellow to land steadily on the grassy gravel-covered ground. Inside the chest was a custom-made exoskeleton equipment. It was Luo Nan's next practice tool. Exoskeleton equipment was expensive, and Luo Nan was currently deep in debt. He had to be careful no matter what. Yinlu was already numb to Luo Nan's endless methods. She was too lazy to think about the technology and ability support behind this. She just did her duty and walked forward quickly, preparing to take over. Luo Nan shook his head. "I'll just hold it." He still looked like a thin and weak youth, and his combat skills were trash in the eyes of professionals like Gym Master Xiao and Shui Lei. However, after a long period of mutual interference and tempering of the God Wheel and Body Wheel, there were even more qualitative changes after the awakening. In terms of physique, it was definitely at the inhuman level. The 200-kilogram metal box was easy to carry with one hand. Compared to who would carry the box, he was more concerned about the follow-up arrangements. "This is a deserted island, right? Where are we going next?" "There's a boat on the shore on the right." Sir, aren't you going to deal with it?" Yinlu was a bit surprised to see Luo Nan leave with the box. Luo Nan was even more baffled. "Handle what?" "This is a framework that can be used for spatial jumps. It's not like there's no one around. Just now, when you came over, there was quite a commotion in the abyss area. If someone followed you here and discovered the setup here, took it away or destroyed it." Luo Nan blinked his eyes. "Does it take a lot of effort for you to buy these things?" "No, it's very simple to order, and there are backups." "Then just leave it here. The materials aren't as expensive as labor." Luo Nan explained a few things in passing. "You said that this is just a framework. It's nothing more than a temporary airdrop station. It's not a permanent building. The truly useful configuration requires the turbulent interference of the abyss area to be temporarily constructed. The rest of the stuff can be messed around with however you want." Strength was the capital to be willful. Yinlu was a bit emotional. She could tell that Luo Nan didn't want to waste energy on this sort of thing, so she didn't say anything more. Then she clasped her hands around her abdomen, bowed once more, and invited Luo Nan to head to the shore of the island to board the boat. Luo Nan walked about 200 to 300 steps before he saw a white yacht anchored on the shore. It was quite conspicuous under the curtain of night. "According to your instructions, we need to maneuver around North Mountain Lake. The corresponding residence is a bit hard to grasp. So, I made the decision on my own and chose this high-speed yacht. If we use it as a habitat, we'll give up some of the comfort, and our mobility and flexibility will increase by quite a bit. Of course, if you're more accustomed to living on land, we can also stay near the shore of the lake." "No, this is a good idea." Luo Nan's eyes really lit up when he saw this yacht. It was for no other reason than that the somewhat vague details of the plan suddenly became clear. It could be considered an unexpected pleasant surprise. Yinlu's mind relaxed. Just Luo Nan's attitude alone meant that the painful process of racking her brains these past 2 days wasn't in vain. Her mind relaxed, but she still maintained a respectful and restrained expression on her face. She just invited Luo Nan to board the yacht from the rear deck and introduced the basic situation of the yacht to Luo Nan at the right time. The yacht's name is Ray. It's Fadi Corporation's Pioneer-class motorboat. It has a classic 3-story structure and its entire body is made of carbon fiber. The boat's length is 24 meters, and it's equipped with a solid fuel and electric dual-drive engine. Its top speed can reach 50 knots, and its steering performance is superior. Since Luo Nan was carrying heavy luggage, Inla first guided him to the residential area of the lower deck to settle him down. This place is completely isolated from the crew cabin. It can guarantee confidentiality and safety. The central area is the master's room. It's the same width as the boat. The living conditions are acceptable. Luo Nan arrived at the master's room of the yacht and put down the heavy metal box. His gaze and mental senses swept over at the same time. What entered his eyes was the luxurious decorations of the cabin. Of course, the most eye-catching thing was the large bed in the middle. It was big enough for 3 or 4 people to lie side by side. There were portholes on both sides that could see the view. There was an office area, a movie area, a restroom, a shower room, and a walk-in wardrobe. It could only be said that the rich were okay. Poor ghosts like them had no way of understanding them. Inla maintained a smile on her face. She let Luo Nan look at the other door outside the cabin. For the sake of confidentiality, I haven't arranged any service personnel in the residential area. However, I'm in the attendant room to the left of the exit. Oh, it's very close. Inla tilted her head slightly. For the sake of convenience, the 2 rooms are connected. If you have any urgent matters that you need me to do, you can find me by pushing open the secret door in the office area. Ha! Inli's eyelids drooped. Her voice was gentle and calm. The secret door is a one-way door. It can only be opened from the master's room. Please be at ease with its safety. The atmosphere turned strange. Luo Nan was dazed for a moment. Then he frowned. There's no need to live so closely. Isn't there another room at the bow? I think it's quite spacious. Inli's eyebrows were still drooped. That's a VIP room. Mr. Luo, don't you have your cousin in Band City? If the situation changes, we might need to move her over here. Or if there are other honored guests staying here, it would be quite awkward to adjust the room. What use is this yacht when we need to move Amoya? Besides, where would there be other honored guests? The madam said that if Mr. Luo feels that the situation in Band City is complicated, she can come over at any time to share Mr. Luo's worries. Luo Nan was silent for a moment. His gaze swept over Li's body. Then he nodded. We'll talk about it later. You continue to introduce the situation on the ship. He didn't stay in the master's room any longer. He walked out first. Inla followed 2 steps behind him. The crew members are all veteran mad believers of the order. They are all retired military personnel. Their speedboat driving and water operations are all first class. Luo Nan grunted. They really are mad believers. Inla raised her eyes and shot a quick glance. Then she immediately lowered her head. She was unable to verify Luo Nan's firm judgment. Or perhaps it was better to say that she didn't dare to verify Luo Nan's judgment. In any case, they could be considered to have settled down now. The living area of the lower deck, excluding the crew's cabins, actually had 3 cabins here. The master's room, the VIP guest room, and the attendant room. A small living room was arranged between these 3 cabins. There was a set of sofas here, and there was a small and exquisite bar counter on the opposite side. The wine rack behind it was filled with all sorts of alcohol. Luo Nan didn't recognize the brand, but he thought that the value of the alcohol placed here must be considerable. Indeed, if there was a professional service staff here, the quality of life on the yacht would soar beyond his imagination. Of course, the reality wasn't bad either. Luo Nan let out a breath and sat on the sofa. He leaned his upper body back, feeling the sofa's soft touch. He felt the northern mountain lake area, Xia City, and even the surrounding areas that were completely different. His attention soon returned to a more meaningful level of information that involved the extraordinary plane. The surrounding aura is very exuberant. Luo Nan chose a more appropriate word. Within his sensing network, the surface of the water, the underwater, the island, and even the sky were all exuberant with life. Or perhaps it could be said that it was exuberant a bit too much. Northern Mountain Lake was once the most active area for mutants in the surrounding areas of Band City. It was also one of the areas with the most abundant populations. Even though the military conducts a large-scale sweep every year, they can only suppress the intensity of the mutants here. Ban City is already the only place in the surrounding seas that is suitable for a large metropolitan area. Building a city here is just a choice made after having no other choice. Yinlu stood ramrod straight at the bottom of the stairs leading from the master's room to the small living room. She introduced softly. "Sit down and talk." Luo Nan just wanted Yinli's help. He didn't want her to be a slave, so he indicated for her to sit down. Yinlu bowed in thanks, but she first dimmed the lights in the small living room. She opened up the virtual work area and projected the relevant information. Only then did she lightly lift the hem of her windbreaker and sit on the edge of the sofa. Luo Nan's gaze followed Yinli's movements by some strange coincidence. He watched as her stocking-wrapped long legs neatly drew together and then slanted outwards. They contrasted with the ankle-high heels of her ankle boots, revealing a particularly slender and perfectly round line. They emitted a faint blue light under the illumination of the luster. So it was blue. Luo Nan's mind leaped with thoughts that had nothing to do with the established goal. His eyelids also jumped. It was as if Yinlu was completely unaware of it. She just adjusted the information in the projection area and explained, "I have previously reported to you about the matter of searching for the target. Right now, we have already locked onto 2 areas surrounding Northern Mountain Lake." Chapter 739. It was his first time on a luxurious yacht like the Ray. It would be too pretentious of him not to go to the top deck to enjoy the breeze and experience the feeling of steering the boat, riding the wind and breaking the waves. Luo Nan wasn't a pretentious person, so he agreed to Yinli's casual suggestion after locking on to their next destination. Thus, the two of them were now on the top deck. The constant temperature system in the room was replaced by the cool and refreshing night wind. Between the spacious water and sky, one's mood would always be a bit different than in a secret room. There was still a certain distance between them and their designated destination. Even though this distance was meaningless to Luo Nan had to consider the detailed requirements of observing and doing things. So Luo Nan let it go for now. He temporarily transformed into a tourist who had just arrived at this place. Under Yinli's guidance, he opened up the pilot's seat on the top deck. He didn't pay attention to small details like driving without a license. Instead, he began a continuous Z-shaped taxiing journey that shocked the ordinary crew members. Luckily, Luo Nan still had some self-awareness. He could sense the chaotic emotions of the crew members, so he just experienced a bit more before withdrawing. He returned to the sunlit area behind the pilot's seat and tasted the low-alcohol beverage Yinlu had concocted. The refreshing taste of the beverage and the refreshing feeling of the night wind interweaved together. It was indeed very enjoyable. On the relatively spacious top deck, Yinlu still followed her habit of sitting in the living area's small living room. She sat right next to Luo Nan. The night wind blew her beautiful hair, and strands of her hair would occasionally touch Luo Nan's cheek. It was so itchy that he wanted to scratch it with his hand. Yinlu noticed this detail and said, "Sorry." She gathered her hair a bit and adjusted her position, sitting a bit further away. Although it was said to be far away, it was actually limited. Plus, the angle was staggered, making it easier for Luo Nan to clearly see her face and the outline of her figure. Luo Nan's gaze naturally swept over. Speaking of which, this was the first time he seriously sized up Yinlu today. On the deserted island, he only managed to recognize her face and ignored everything else. In the living room, he just stared at her stockings. It was only now that Luo Nan discovered that Yinli's clothes didn't quite match his impression of the capable manager of Frost River Reality and the deputy first oblatum of the Blood Flame Order. She put on makeup, and the shape of her face and eyebrows became even more exquisite. The dark blue pinstripe windbreaker had a very formal style. The front was wide open, and it naturally revealed the tight-fitting light-colored high-collared shirt. Overall, it was a very intellectual style. However, further down, there was a short skirt that was almost hidden under the hem of the trench coat. Together with the long legs wrapped in stockings and the high-heeled boots, it had the magical effect of attracting the attention of men. Luo Nan was an example. Actually, Luo Nan was a complete layman when it came to women's clothing. He just felt that Yinlu was a very exquisite woman who would pay attention to the details. It was just like the stockings that wrapped around his legs. At first, he thought it was just ordinary black silk, but he didn't expect that under the illumination of the light, there would be an additional layer of color and luster. Yinlu was such a person. She was exquisite, paid attention to the quality of life, and knew how to enjoy life. However, he lacked the ability to focus on cultivation without any distractions. This was probably the main reason why Mrs. Holder had never treated her as a true successor to be groomed. Of course, Mrs. Holder herself didn't care that much about the continuation of the Blood Flame Order. She just used the Blood Flame Order, especially the Blood Soul Temple's configuration, as a furnace for smelting a unique core. Luo Nan was certain that he wouldn't hand over important matters that concerned his life to Yinlu. This had nothing to do with being close or not. It was just that he knew how to appoint people. However, if Yinlu were to arrange some routine and normal matters, she would do it extremely well. Though the upper limit was relatively low, Yinlu was able to play with flowers within a limited space. It was said that before she entered the circle, she was once Mrs. Holder's secretary. A personal secretary. The feeling of being a working secretary or a confidential secretary like Sister Yuan was completely different. TSK, what am I thinking now? Luo Nan's thoughts touched Yuan, and he suddenly came to a realization. It had only been half an hour since he arrived in Ban City, but he had spent a lot more brain power and time on this woman before his eyes than on the scheduled business. Luo Nan, oh Luo Nan, you've just stepped onto the yacht, and you've already degenerated into a rotten fellow? It's done. Luo Nan suddenly clapped his hands. Mister. It was unknown when, but Yin Li's way of addressing Luo Nan had already removed the surname from the front. This was also a subtle change in the details. Luo Nan didn't care about these details. He reorganized his thoughts and asked a question. The consumables I talked about 2 days ago, especially the matter of the energy center. How's it going? Was this a switch-in mask? Yin Li still wasn't quite used to Luo Nan's jumpy emotions and thoughts, but she still displayed extremely high accomplishments in her field of expertise. She took a light breath and immediately opened up the virtual work area. She projected the corresponding information over. According to your request, Mr., a total of 12 tons of consumables have been purchased. This is the list. As for the energy center, we have prepared 2 alternative locations. They are both in the vicinity of North Mountain Lake. The projection area first displayed a satellite map of the Ban City area, as well as the important markings on it. Then, it displayed the information images of the 2 alternative locations. Point A, which is also the North Mountain Water Generating Station, is 300 kilometers away from the center of Ban City. It is approximately 70 kilometers northwest of your position when you arrived. It is the first batch of emergency infrastructure facilities after the war. It originally had a total installed capacity of 1.2 million kilowatts. It has a total of 4 units, large and small. However, it has basically been discontinued. Only a single 50,000 kilowatts unit is still in operation. It exists as a backup power station for the old power grid. There are still people here? There are no residential areas in the surroundings. The hydroelectric power station operates in an unmanned mode. There will be people coming over to maintain it every month, but it's just a routine matter. Basically, as long as war doesn't erupt and large-scale mutant invasions don't occur in Ban City, no one will care about it. Of course, system monitoring definitely exists. We need to get through certain joints. Luo Nan nodded. It would be much simpler to use the external neuron to deal with system monitoring. The projection area displayed the next set of images. As for Point B, it is located on North Mountain Lake's Claw Island. It is 20 kilometers away from your position when you arrived, Mr. The generator set there is a first-generation miniaturized field combat energy center. It is a complete superconducting generator set, powered by both wind and water. The capacity of this generator set is much lower. It is approximately 3,000 kilowatts. Claw Island was originally a monitoring point for mutants. It also served as a forward base for explorers, but it was captured by mutants once. The casualties were disastrous. Later, it changed hands many times, but accidents always occur. It seems that mutants care quite a bit about that place. They often go there, so the frequency of accidents is quite high. I'll take both of them. Huh. The straight line distance between Point A and Point B is only 40 kilometers. Both are relatively independent. One is used as an experimental base, while the other is used as a shooting range. It's quite perfect. Is that so? Yinlu subconsciously asked, but she quickly regained her composure. She bowed and expressed, "Since it's like this, I will immediately clean up the loose ends. You just need to sign a temporary rental agreement for Point B. As for Point A, you can use it right now." Luo Nan nodded. He had something to do tonight. He spoke again. "There are also consumables. First transport half of each to Point A and some to Point B. There's no need for too much. Just 1/10 will do." Yinlu recorded at the same time. She knew how to check and fill in the gaps. "Do we need to put some on the yacht as well?" That's right. That's good." Luo Nan gave her a reminder. "We need to prepare the subsequent purchases as well. The losses will be quite large." The so-called consumables were the ingredients needed for the biochemical reactor. Unfortunately, this was only the basic formula. The ingredients needed for the advanced formula were not complete. This led to the catalyzed electromagnetic muscle membrane structure having a low carrying capacity. The catalysis required a large amount of energy and nutrients, but once it was unleashed at full strength, the carrying capacity was extremely tight. The more this was the case, the more Luo Nan needed to utilize every second of his explosive period. Only then could he increase his chances of assassinating Gong Qi. This required a large amount of repetitive practice. According to his experience in Spring City, it required a large amount of electricity, high amounts of nutrients, and consumable base materials. It was easy to imagine that this was a giant beast that ate money. The pressure on logistics was far too great. This kind of practice could only be carried out in the metropolis and its surrounding areas. He would be the center of everyone's attention if he was in Xia City. He was far too eye-catching. Spring City was like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bow. D City's situation was complicated. Because of the so-called new plane, extraordinaries would pass through from time to time. In other words, Luo Nan could still give it a try in Ban City. Luo Nan wasn't picky about Yin Li's methods. He wasn't stingy with his praise. "You've done quite well. Mister, you flatter me." Yin Lu bowed in greeting. She still maintained a cautious and restrained attitude. However, this restraint was built on a complex psychological foundation. It was like her exquisite makeup. Even though her foundation was excellent, it was unknown how much effort she had put in to achieve this level of beauty without batting an eyelid. It was precisely because it was complex that it brought about more real-time changes. It gave people the interest and pleasure to explore. Fuck. I'm thinking too much again. Luo Nan took a deep breath. He prepared to use the induction network to investigate the situation of the two bases. Yinlu suddenly stood up at this time. The lower hem of her windbreaker covered more of the lines of her legs, but it seemed to expose more as it fluttered in the wind. Luo Nan, who was still sitting in his original position, subconsciously made a comparison. His consciousness shifted, and the voice beside his ear became a bit fuzzy. This lasted until Yinlu spoke a second time. "Mister?" "Yes." Up ahead is the Zhuajiawei Gate. Only now did Luo Nan completely wake up. He stood up as well and stood by Yin Li's side. He looked down from high above, past the heavy mist, and looked toward the edge of the lake several kilometers away. Chapter 740. The reason why the camphor tree had its back to Luo Nan was because this camphor tree possessed an extremely human-like appearance. Its crown and branches were naturally shaped as it grew. Looking from afar, one didn't need too much imagination to be able to see an awe-inspiring appearance similar to that of an arhat or a heavenly king in a temple. Many years of growth had caused the main trunk of the camphor tree to diverge. It was like two thick legs standing upright on the ground. It also had an enormous, clearly defined head. That was the crown of its trunk. In addition, there was a cluster of well-developed side branches that extended over a dozen meters. It was like a thick arm that was stretched out horizontally. This arm was placed horizontally above the seemingly tranquil ripples of Beishan Lake. The lake water rippled slightly. It vibrated back and forth with the granite patterns of the breakwater that resembled a city wall. There were slight twists and turns, but it didn't cross over this horizontal extension of the thick arm. "This is the Zhujiawei Gate?" "Yes." During the Third World War, the earthquake caused the topography of the mountain to change. The flood from upstream poured down in torrents. Soon, it submerged the ancient capital and forced the other cities downstream. But due to topography, coincidence, and other reasons, the flood, which could have caused even greater destruction, stopped here and didn't advance any further. It formed an enormous dammed lake. Although there were many dangerous situations in the following decades, the lake water generally stopped behind this camphor tree. It didn't advance any further. The citizens of Osaka City believed that this tree was mystical, so they used the local folklore to name it Way Gate. The general idea was that it was an imperial bodyguard that guarded the royal court. And it is rumored that the seed of this tree was transplanted from the sunken Saga County of Kyushu Island. In ancient times, Saga was called Saga, so it was called the Zujia Way Gate. Luo Nan already had a preliminary understanding of the concrete information through his own observations and the information provided by Yin Lu. But listening to Yin Lu narrate the rather mystical legend like she was telling a story was still a relaxing experience. Looking at the Zujia Way Gate now, it really did seem like a powerhouse with a thick and sturdy body. It exerted force with its arm horizontally, forcefully stopping the boundless water waves. And it had its back to the lake's surface, disregarding all threats. It was extremely bold and powerful. It had a sense of beauty. Of course, it was impossible for the government of Osaka City to completely entrust the safety of the city to a camphor tree. According to the records, when the city of Ban was first established, the builders built a series of dams and other water conservancy projects behind this big tree, completely controlling the possibility of the North Mountain invading Hunan. The semi-abandoned hydroelectric power station that Luo Nan would soon be heading to was one of the results of that time. The designer of the water conservancy project must have taken into account the beliefs of the people. When building the dam, he left plenty of room for the camphor tree to grow. The divine tree didn't stand on ceremony either. Not only did its thick roots penetrate deep into the ground, a considerable portion of them also extended above the ground. Green moss covered the surface of the tree, giving it an ancient appearance. Yin Lu continued, "Actually, this tree isn't that old, only about 100 years old. However, its growth is very vigorous, and it's even larger than some 1,000-year-old trees. Logically speaking, there should be some abnormalities. It's just that the plant's mutation is relatively mild, and Osaka City's government didn't find any obvious problems after monitoring it for a long period of time, so they left." Luo Nan gazed into the distance and muttered, "The incense is quite exuberant." It was around 8 o'clock in the evening, the time when the citizens would go out and relax. Quite a few residents and tourists came before this camphor tree. According to the local custom, they would go before the tree, high-five, and put their palms together in respect. The stream of people under the tree maintained a relatively plentiful state. They came in an endless stream, and it really did look quite intimidating. Yin Lu flipped through the information and applied what she had learned. The locals usually worshipped the gods in the morning, but according to legend, when the flood arrived behind the Zujia Gate, night had fallen. Therefore, the people believe that the power of the Zujia Gate is more abundant at night, and the worship is done after the sun has set. If it was daytime, there wouldn't be so many people. Luo Nan nodded slightly. He couldn't blame the citizens of Osaka City for offering large amounts of incense and faith. This camphor tree really did have a bit of spirituality. Its vitality was exuberant to the point that it was shocking. It was able to absorb large amounts of nutrients from the surrounding earth, the air, the water behind it, and even more distant regions. It was able to effectively distribute these nutrients to its roots and branches. At the same time, it was able to restrain itself, forming a healthy symbiotic relationship with its surroundings. This was already a realm that ordinary plants couldn't achieve. It was basically the truth to say that it was a plant class mutant. In addition, there were even more special places. Right now, the yacht was very close to the dam. It couldn't go any closer, so it temporarily dropped the anchor and stayed on the water's surface. Luo Nan used his sight and mental senses to observe from this position. He was silent for a long time. Yin Lu cooperatively stayed silent for a period of time. But a few minutes later, she saw that Luo Nan continued like this. She couldn't help but ask softly, "Mister, is there a direct relationship between this camphor tree and that person's tracks?" The so-called person was none other than Snake Tongue. Yin Li's initial goal in coming to Osaka City was to help Luo Nan search for traces of Snake Tongue's body. Snake Tongue was a famous curse master of the inner world. Last year, She went to Xia City in an out-of-body state to cooperate with headquarters in an operation to try and harm Luo Nan. Later the operation failed, and many people saw Luo Nan use a secret technique to capture her. But no one knew whether she was imprisoned or killed. Therefore, Yin Lu and Mrs. Halder weren't the least bit surprised that Luo Nan wanted to search for Snake Tongue's body. As for what Luo Nan was going to do with Snake Tongue's body, whether it was whipping corpses to vent his anger, threatening and torturing them, or using them as medicine, it was none of their business. Being able to consolidate and deepen their relationship with Luo Nan through these matters was the most important thing. Yin Lu didn't just want to give Luo Nan a good impression through doing things. Before coming here, she and Mrs. Halder had devised quite a few plans on how to improve their relationship with Luo Nan. Over the next few days in Osaka City, she would verify each plan one by one to see which would produce better results. Judging from the situation just now, Luo Nan wasn't completely indifferent to some of her methods. He wasn't angry either. This was a good start, but what to do next to be just right was still a difficult problem that she had no confidence in. She had no choice but to try. Yin Lu cast her gaze toward Luo Nan once more. Luo Nan was still looking at the camphor tree in the distance, as well as the figures moving under the camphor tree. He was extremely focused. Yin Lu couldn't guess what sort of scene would appear in his eyes and mental senses, but it made her even more curious. Luo Nan was undoubtedly a mysterious and powerful person. But the deeper she understood, the more she understood that in a certain sense, this person was just a simple and even pure youth. Powerful strength, malicious intent surrounding him, endlessly pushing him through dangerous trials, special experiences during his childhood, good family education. All sorts of complex and contradictory conditions were mixed together to form Luo Nan's special personality that was close to having a split personality. To develop a relationship with such a person. Furthermore, she was in a lower position, so it wasn't easy for her to fawn over him. What's more, she could face a backlash at any time. Luo Nan's chaotic and ever-changing personality was like a set of rapidly rotating fan blades. They appeared to be one entity under the high-speed state, but they were lethal weapons capable of twisting off fingers in a direct confrontation. In fact, it was very likely that it would be her neck that was snapped. Just thinking about it, Yin Li's heartbeat sped up. But thinking about how she had to control a powerful spiritual expert beside her, it was tough for her. Luo Nan's murmur entered his ears while he was doing his best to harmonize his breathing. What a beauty! Are you talking about me? Yin Li's heart skipped a beat, but she soon realized that she had expressed the wrong feelings. This was because Luo Nan had been looking at the shore from beginning to end. His gaze pierced nearly a kilometer of the boundless curtain of night, locking onto a particular point amidst the stream of people coming and going under the camphor tree. Though Yin Lu was also an ability user and a spiritual expert, whether it was her gaze or the distance of her mental senses, they weren't enough to allow her to see the details of the lake shore. She could only indulge her thoughts and speculate. The youth before her really seemed to have reached the age where he was interested in the opposite sex. Luo Nan spoke again, this time to Yin Lu. Can the boat dock? Yin Lu quickly came back to her senses and responded. There are no docks nearby, but the boat is equipped with fishing boats. We can bypass the breakwater in front and disembark from the eastern region. Really? That's great. Our luck isn't bad. Luo Nan no longer lingered on the scene on the shore after he finished speaking. He turned his head and headed to the lower deck. Yin Lu hurriedly followed behind him. She connected Luo Nan's words together and sorted out his logic once more. She suddenly discovered a difficult problem. If he goes ashore for the sake of looking at a beautiful woman up close, or even going a step further, should I help him? Or should I give him advice? Or should I directly help him? The current Luo Nan was quite different from the image of an obedient child in Xia City. With Yin Li's intelligence channels, she obviously wouldn't take the paternity test incident from a few days ago seriously. But the more she did this, the greater the contrast became. Logically speaking, it's more likely that I'm wrong. But if what the madam said is true, then the current Luo Nan is a depressed child who has just awakened his adult consciousness. He has suppressed his instincts because he hasn't been enlightened yet. After arriving in a foreign region like Ban City, he'll lose his usual restraints. It's not impossible for him to suddenly awaken and erupt. While Yin Li's imagination was running wild, she and Luo Nan boarded the fishing boat that was equipped with the yacht. They took a detour to disembark and spent a bit of time walking from the breakwater to Mr. Zhuajiawei Men. The camphor tree appeared even larger and more majestic up close than it did from afar. Yinlu was already able to faintly feel the exuberant life force circulating in the surrounding air at this time. She could also feel the chaotic and disorderly power of faith coming from the worshippers around her. The accumulation of a few decades has actually reached this scale. If it's a small religious sect, they can basically use this point to awaken a few ability users who have affinity with this domain. Oh, there are many religious sects in Ban City. Even if most of them don't have a high upper limit, they are still insiders. They shouldn't be blind to this extent. Then, Yinli's heart was stirred and she looked all around. She had a rather clear standard of search. Soon, she found a monk meditating with his eyes closed in the shadow of an outstretched arm on the west side of the camphor tree. He was called a monk because this person wore a loose robe similar to a kasaya. His hair was kept extremely short. He looked more like a cultivator who wasn't part of the 5 elements. The surrounding citizens who came to pay their respects didn't find this person's existence strange at all. He's an ability user, but he shouldn't be a Buddhist. Compared to the secret orders that supported half the sky of the inner world, the existence of traditional religions was extremely weak in the context of the new era. At the very least, it was completely disproportionate when compared to the scale that practically monopolized the domain of faith before the war. However, once an ability user was born among them, they would often have a more distinct characteristic of a religious sect. Yinlu, who was rich in experience, could recognize it with a single glance. The monk before her clearly didn't possess that characteristic. However, the aura around his body was quite harmonious with that of the Jordan Gate. He was also tainted with the light of faith. He possessed a special quality that was completely different from that of a secular person. He was an awakened, and his strength wasn't ordinary. He even had a bonus in the vicinity of the Jordan Gate. Yinlu furrowed her brows. She felt that she had overlooked too many things in her intelligence-gathering work in Ban City. She immediately made up for it and used special channels to conduct an in-depth understanding. She spent 2 minutes combing through the information. Right when she was about to report it to Luo Nan, the figure of the youth beside her moved slightly. He stepped into the stream of people who were leaving in front of her and went straight back the way he came. "Mr." Yinlu subconsciously cried out, but she soon came to her senses. She pursed her lips and didn't say anything. She just followed closely behind. She thought of what Luo Nan said before and raised her eyes to look forward. Sure enough, there was a woman with a beautiful figure about 7 or 8 people away. She wore a traditional local kimono. Her head was slightly lowered as she slowly walked forward with the stream of people. Yinlu couldn't see the woman's face, but she could see the skin on the back of the woman's neck that was slightly exposed. The woman's gait was as white as jade, and the woman's gait was extremely graceful. The surrounding men and women unconsciously turned their gazes to size her up. She could basically confirm that the woman was a beauty above average. Of course, Yinlu wasn't inferior in the slightest when it came to contorting gazes. This made Luo Nan a bit dissatisfied with her. Keep a low profile. Don't attract attention. Yinlu felt quite wronged at this moment. She was stunned for a moment before responding. Then I'll go gather some intelligence on that person first. Luo Nan still stared at the woman without letting go. He just nodded in approval. Yinlu let out a breath of relief. At the same time, she vowed to herself that no matter where she went, she would prepare a flying car or some sort of enclosed vehicle. At the very least, she would attract Luo Nan's attention and wouldn't cause him any trouble. Chapter 741. Osaka was a city rebuilt on the ruins. Due to geographical reasons, it was sandwiched by Beishan Lake and the Southern Bay, forming a barbell-like city layout. Beishan Lake was the northernmost part of Osaka, but the southern shore of Beishan Lake was definitely not. There were still a considerable number of residential facilities around the south-central area of Beishan Lake, and a considerable part of them were high-class residential areas. Don't be surprised why people would still build mansions here under the threat of the mutants. Basically, a considerable number of important people in Osaka used this place as a hunting villa. Especially in the past few years after the birth of the Deep Blue Walkers, the world government had basically turned from defense to offense in the wilderness. As the threat continued to decline, the high-level social mode of hunting around the lake became popular. However, this season was just the gap between the spring and summer hunting, and the hunting villa community by the lake seemed empty, with few pedestrians and relatively deserted. When the two people passed by, it was still a relatively difficult thing to ignore each other. "Good evening, Mrs. Kitayama." "Good evening. The wind tonight is very cool." "Yes." The two people passed by each other, leaving only the stiff smile of the housewife in the cool night wind. With this small detail as the starting point, it quickly became the main topic of tonight's high-class villa area. At the boring San Friends gathering of the women, many people commented, "Kitayama Yuahui, such a rude person. She's just an artist who retired from the entertainment industry. She's really arrogant." "I heard that Mr. Kitayama is a powerful person in society?" "Yes, I heard that. So for a long time, Mrs. Kitayama almost never went out. But I also heard that the powerful Mr. Kitayama is probably dead." "Oh really? Isn't it?" Every month or two, a car would pick her up at the door and come back after about a week. But that kind of car hasn't appeared for a long time. Osaka has been cracking down on societies recently, and it is said that many people were hospitalized and then died. "Oh, so that's how it is." Then Mrs. Kitayama has been going to Mr. Jorgaman's place recently. She's going to pray, and it may be a fleeting future. Here, maybe we will soon lose sight of her. Whispers of surprise and excitement could be heard, or they could not be heard. Perhaps Bei-shan Yuehui, who was at the center of the discussion, could hear it, or could not. For now, she was still walking at an unhurried pace, maintaining a calm and indifferent attitude as she walked along the narrow but tidy tree-lined path. After all, it was getting late. Life in the major commercial and entertainment districts of Ban City had just begun, but for the people in this community, it was basically time to rest at home. The further they walked along the boulevard, the fewer people there were. In the end, after walking for more than 100 meters, they didn't see a single person. However, right at this moment, Northmont Shuahui arrived at his own doorstep. The AI butler detected her vital data, and the security system opened the door. "You are back, madam." Bei-shan Yuehui silently walked into the yard. She still walked at the same pace as before, passing through the exquisite front yard. A gentle breeze blew, and the short shrubs and red-edged maple leaves in the yard rustled, welcoming their mistress home. The door to the main house opened as well. Bei-shan Yuehui walked to the entrance, put down her handbag, and bent down to change her shoes. At this moment, the lights in the house suddenly flickered, and the AI butler spoke again. "Sorry, there is some trouble." The voice was cut off, and the lights in the house were completely extinguished. Bei-shan Yuehui straightened up, stunned. But before she could react, a figure suddenly rushed in from outside the room. The moment he rushed into the door, he tightly stuck to Bei-shan Shuhui's waist without leaving any gap. At the same time, he stretched out his elbow across her shoulder, across her throat, and then pulled back, firmly jamming her windpipe and preventing her from making a sound. "Mrs. Bei-shan, poor woman, don't panic, I am here to help you." The voice of the intruder behind her was hoarse, and he breathed heavily. His hot breath rushed past Bei-shan Yue's ears. It had nothing to do with physical strength, but a natural reaction after the secretion of hormones. "You have lost the care of a powerful person, haven't you? Without a backer, how can you maintain such an elegant and leisurely life? The future is simply a foreseeable tragedy. Come, I am here to help you. I don't need to do anything extra, just treat me the way you treat that person." Sensing that Kitashin Yuehui's resistance was very weak, the intruder turned her around, still clutching her throat with his hand. With the help of the moonlight shining in from the window, the intruder admired the beauty's delicate face, which was stiff from fear. Yes, this was the face. He had been spying under the camphor tree for a whole 2 months. It was a perfect fit for his aesthetic standards, a combination of beauty and fame. Although in the industry, this woman was also a relatively low-key type, but after more than 10 years of acting career, she should have many fans. Countless people could only look at her, but they would soon moan and beg under his body. Wasn't this the biggest source of motivation for him to become an ability user, to become a powerful person, and to be willing to work hard to cultivate? Now I am also such a person. The dim light of the emergency light in the corner of the wall reflected the intruder's face. This face had already assumed a pious and profound cultivation style, and he had been sitting under the Zujia guard gate, intermittently for nearly a year. At this time, he was still wearing a loose robe, but he quickly tore it off impatiently. "Mrs. Bei-shan, remember me. I am Okano Soichiro. Hey! The fake monk, named Okano Soichiro, was too excited. When he tore off his own clothes, he actually gave Bei Shan-Yuhui a chance to struggle. This woman, who was dominated by fear, somehow managed to escape from his grasp. She staggered backward, but her hind leg tripped on the corner of the entrance, and her body fell backward, falling heavily on the tatami. Okano Soichiro thought that Bei Shan-Yuhui was going to scream, so he quickly rushed forward. But the expected scream did not come. In front of him, Bei Shan-Yuhui was like an exquisite doll, only opened her eyes wide in fear. The lower hem of the kimono was stretched out by her naturally spread legs, and above her snow-white feet was the skin of her calves that was in no way inferior, or even smoother. This posture was slightly inelegant, but it was more suitable for the current situation, and it was an appropriate way to show off her beauty. Okano Soichiro was a little surprised, and the flames in his heart rose for the second time, crackling. He couldn't help but praise in his heart. She really is worthy of being a senior mistress who has followed a powerful figure for many years. She knows how to use her capital to avoid greater harm. This is even better. Okano Soichiro was really about to explode. He quickly threw the loose robe that was in the way to the side, revealing a strong body that was only wrapped in the lower half. Mrs. Bei Shan, you have done well. From tonight onwards, you will live a new life, and it will be more comfortable than before. I, Okano Soichiro, a senior cadre of the All-Spirit sect, a person who is close to the gods, a person who is close to the gods. The so-called powerful figures of the underworld are not even worth mentioning compared to me. Come on, Mrs. Bei Shan, you can continue to do it, and show me what you are best at. Kitayama Yuki didn't completely listen to the intruder's request. Perhaps fear had completely seized her soul. She just sat on the tatami, half propped up with her elbows, and stared blankly at the fake monk under the faint light. If there was any movement, it was probably the light pink lipstick on her lips, gently opening and closing as she murmured something. At first, Okano Soichiro thought that she was begging for mercy, but the next second, he heard part of the words clearly. It's the life curse, the worldly love curse, and the great equality curse. There is no difference between the heavenly awakening myriad spirits. Like life and hate death, all living beings are the same. In fact, Kitayama Yuki's voice was very soft, and her lips were not visible. If it were any other words, it would be very difficult to distinguish. But Okano Soichiro was too familiar with this part. He was stunned at first, and then he couldn't help but laugh. Wasn't this the prayer of the All-Spirit sect? This set of prayer was obviously adapted from Buddhist scriptures, and the editor was quite insincere. However, within the scope of the spiritual light of the Sakavai Gate, it was indeed quite efficacious. If not for this, who would pay attention to ability users like them who had their eyes on the top of their heads? He didn't expect Kitayama Yuki to be a devout believer. But in front of him, a high-ranking cadre of the All-Spirit sect, she was chanting the All-Spirit's curse. This was pandering, it had to be pandering. Come, Mrs. Kitayama, I will teach you a more correct way of chanting. I will show you a miracle, and let you see a new world. Okano Soichiro thought that it might be interesting to put on a preaching act. But after saying so much, he was already parched by the flames in his body. He couldn't hold it in any longer. He took a step forward, reached out, and grabbed the front of Kitayama Yuki's dark blue kimono. He tore it, along with the inner lining, and even loosened the belt. Kitayama Yuki's loosened collar didn't expose too much, but the clear and perfect collarbone was another part of the sexiness of a mature woman. Okano Soichiro was so excited that he almost howled. He couldn't care less about finding a bed or anything else. His body pressed down, and he wanted to taste the cool fragrance of Kitayama Yuki's body again. But at this moment, his chest suddenly trembled, and there was some resistance. It wasn't too big, but some kind of inexplicable and strange feeling started from there, all the way back, stirring in his chest, and then coming out from his back. Numbness and slight pain, as well as the instinctive awakening of fear in the human body, surged into his mind. He widened his eyes and looked at the beautiful face that was right in front of him, who was still muttering an incantation with a unique stiffness. The second and third penetrative attacks came one after another. Okano Soichiro finally turned his gaze to between his chest and abdomen, and then he saw 3 vines as thick as a thumb penetrating into his body from different parts of his chest and abdomen, and they came out from his back that he couldn't see. Fear stimulated his spirit sense. Although he couldn't see, He could feel that the 3 vines were intertwining and twisting above his back, like spirit snakes swimming and coiling. Where did these vines come from? Am I going to die? Confusion and fear, as well as the fatal true damage, instantly took away all his strength. His body went soft, and it was impossible for him to support his body anymore. Naturally, he fell to Kitayama Yuki below him. But the 4th, the 5th. Okano Soichiro couldn't count them at all. His remaining consciousness was no longer suitable for such complicated work. Countless vines and tree roots shot out from Kitayama Yuki's messy kimono, from the originally neat tatami, and from the walls and ceiling. They were not limited to Okano Soichiro's chest, abdomen, and back, but also his hands, feet, head, and all other places that could be pierced and sucked flesh. In the blink of an eye, Okano Soichiro was held in midair by the vines and tree roots. He wasn't dead yet, and the familiar incantation was still echoing in his ears. Why is this happening? Okano Soichiro was, of course, unwilling to die in such a cowardly way. He also tried to chant the incantation and mobilize his supernatural power to save himself, but everything melted under Kitayama Yuki's stiff tone. His supernatural power was unmoving. The vines and tree roots that pierced through his body had absorbed all his vitality, turning him into a pool of muddy stagnant water. And the source of the power that killed him. Okano Soichiro made a muddy sound and tried to reach out his hand, wanting to touch the beautiful face that was close at hand. However, his arm, which had been pierced by several vines and tree roots, had completely lost its momentum. His fingertips moved forward by less than a centimeter, not even a millimeter, before they were forever frozen in midair. And under the greedy suction of the vines and tree roots, they rapidly withered and lost all their flesh and water. His body was the same, turning into a shriveled, curled corpse. Such a horrifying scene happened in front of her, but Kitayama Yuki's beautiful face was still the same as before. She just stopped chanting the incantation, and her eyes were calm and empty as she looked forward. In midair, Okano Soichiro's remains were gradually pulled by the vines and tree roots. Due to the rapid extraction of water and nutrients, the bones that supported his body also quickly lost their strength and shattered. It was impossible for them to resist the pulling force from all directions. In the blink of an eye, he turned from a dried-up corpse to an unrecognizable human shape. Then he cracked and disintegrated. Most of the remains were taken away by the vines and tree roots and sent into the hidden garbage channel. However, some pieces of skin and flesh fell from between the vines and tree roots, sprinkling on the porch and tatami, and some on the edge of Kitayama Yuki's snow-white footbag. At this time, the advanced AI butler had finally overcome the virus invasion and rebooted and restored its functions. This bit of human tissue debris was naturally cleaned up by the multifunction housekeeping robot that automatically activated. The silent vacuum cleaner sucked away the human tissue debris, including the bit on the footbag. During this time, Kitayama Yuki did not move at all. It was not until the cleaning work was completed that she got up. However, halfway through her movement, she suddenly could not continue her follow-up strength. Her body went limp, and she fell on her back on the tatami that was already riddled with holes. She tried again, but even her shoulders could not leave the floor. Only her fingers and feet twitched slightly. Even in this terrible state, her beautiful and delicate face still did not change. Her eyes met the ceiling, and they were also empty and unfocused. There was no fear or panic, and there was no aura that a human should have. Chapter 742. The AI housekeeper's simulated personality was that of a mature and considerate man at home. His voice was gentle and gentle. His announcement was done step by step and carried a sense of leisure. However, the main hall and the entrance were still in a state of being riddled with holes from the piercing vines and tree roots. The mistress of the house was lying on the ground. Her body was stiff and her legs were unnaturally bent. Part of her body was still in the position of being violated. Under such circumstances, the housekeeper's announcement appeared particularly strange and comical. There were no cars parked outside this high-class villa. In a practical sense, the housekeeper's announcement was just an announcement that the AI system had submitted to its new master. Nothing more. Following the announcement, the main door of the room opened according to normal procedures. Luo Nan and Yin Lu walked in one after the other. Compared to Yin Li's vigilant and stern body language, Luo Nan was much more relaxed. He even had the leisure to struggle at the entrance, Should I take off my shoes? Even though the housekeeping robot was already working very hard, the uneven-sized holes on the ground, the rubble and burrs protruding from the edges, and so on dispelled his thoughts. He stepped directly onto the tatami and arrived next to Kiddushin Yuehui, who was lying on her back. He looked closely at the doll-like exquisite beauty before him a few times and nodded. It's her. Does this count as luck or strength? Who? Inlu already had some guesses in her mind, but the answer was far beyond the norm. She didn't dare to come to a conclusion easily. She could only beat around the bush and ask another question. The Mr. Kiddushin that the AI housekeeper mentioned. It's Mr. Kiddushin's car. Luo Nan corrected the key details seriously and considerately extracted the key information from the AI housekeeper system using the external neuron and displayed it through the projection. Anyone with a bit of common sense in this field would be able to clearly distinguish that the reference database in the system's backend was absolutely not a face or a human body's characteristic vector. The code inside didn't have the corresponding keywords at all. What appeared instead was just as Luo Nan said. It was more like a car and its license plate, plus a special electronic signal. Luo Nan spread his hands. Aside from this Mrs. Kiddushin, the access control system only has that car as its reference data. In other words, other than the AI butler being polite to the mistress, the only exception was a car with a specific license plate and signal transmitter. Then, where was the male owner of this high-class residence, Mr. Bei Shan, the powerful figure in society that the surrounding residents spoke of? I'll send someone to check it right away. Inlu immediately took a picture of the key code and handed it over to the professionals of the order. However, at this moment, perhaps stimulated by their voices, on the tatami, Kitayama Yuehui's beautiful but hollow eyes focused. The low shrubs and half-tall maple trees in the courtyard rustled again. Most importantly, behind the ceiling, walls and tatami mats, the rattan roots that were brimming with vitality were also leaping about. Learning from Okano Soichiro's mistake, Inlu instinctively connects with the Blood Soul Temple in the Abyssal District and interferes in the spiritual and material levels. There seems to be a ring of flame dancing on the surface of her skin. Luo Nan waved his hand at her. Don't start a conflict. It wouldn't be good if the neighbors found out. But this is not something I can control. Inlu sensed the vigorous and restless vitality in the surroundings. She felt quite awkward. She was a secretary, so of course she knew that the boss could issue some unreasonable instructions at any time. How to execute them and effectively buffer them was a field of study. The problem was that there really wasn't any leeway for buffering in the current situation. But in the blink of an eye, Inla discovered that she was overthinking things. Luo Nan really didn't have the self-awareness of being a boss. He did things more personally. The youth snapped his fingers. He probably felt that this would make him look quite handsome. After a pointless show-off, a powerful and inconceivable supernatural power drove him. Inla saw the rattan roots that had been accumulating power at the edges of the holes seemingly shiver in unison. They froze for at least half a second before they began to withdraw to a more concealed place. The restless vitality that gathered in the surroundings also transformed into scattered fluctuations that receded into the distance like a receding tide. Mister. That person won't disturb us for a while. Luo Nan squatted down beside Beishan Shuehui. He extended his hand to touch that exquisite and enchanting face. At the same time, he chatted with Inlu. It's very normal for a mutant to be powerful. But to be able to achieve a state of symbiosis with all kinds of vegetation within a diameter of 20 kilometers and divide them into orderly levels. They can rapidly exchange information, effectively transmit all kinds of nutrients, and continue to push the level of life. This kind of method already possesses a relatively solid social nature. I've only seen similar examples in the Vulcan ant colony. It doesn't matter if there's someone guiding it during this process. Mr. Jordan Wyman is quite amazing. Luo Nan even used his other hand to pat the tatami as he spoke. This could be considered a friendly greeting to the mutant camphor tree that was currently avoiding this dangerous area. That's right. You give me face, and I won't destroy the vegetation kingdom on the southern shore of Beishan Lake that you've built with great difficulty. You can also continue to be the king and god within this 300 to 500 square kilometer area. Yes, Mr. Jordan Wyman was able to achieve this scale. This was directly related to his low-key and pragmatic attitude. It seemed that he was very good at cooperating with others. He was willing to listen to others' opinions, and he was able to distinguish when to seize the center position and tyrannically abuse others, and went to retreat to the corner to develop wretchedly. He wasn't like the Vulcan ant colony. They relied on their innate talent to forcefully open up their base and show off their operations. No one could blame them for being harvested batch after batch. Regardless of whether it was Luo Nan's explanatory words or the deeper meaning behind his words, Yinlu had a certain difficulty in understanding them. She could only discuss the matter as it stood. Mister, are you saying that the aberrant camphor tree is playing tricks behind all of this? It controls the surrounding vegetation and this Mrs. Beishan. Yinlu cut off the second half of her sentence when she spoke up to this point. This was because she was still unable to explain the problem with Mr. Beishan's car. Luo Nan also laughed. Mr. Jordan Wyman is an expert in transforming plants, but he suddenly jumped to a higher mammal. Moreover, he looks just like a normal person. Isn't it too horrifying to consider this? Yes. Yes. Yinlu felt that her response was like that of a new graduate. Other than saying yes, she didn't have any other value to her existence. This made her feel a bit frustrated, as well as a rapidly soaring sense of crisis. If she kept wandering outside of her boss's core thoughts, then her job as a secretary would most likely end. She wouldn't be able to achieve the more difficult goal of deepening relationships. This didn't make sense. Yinlu had always felt that she was a smart and astute person. Even in front of Mrs. Holder, she could still do the work of a good advisor. But beside Luo Nan, when faced with this youth's leaping thinking pattern and his unpredictable temperament and attitude, it was far too difficult to form a response. Could it be that her plan's positioning was still lacking? Luo Nan didn't care about what Yinlu thought. It was quite refreshing to capture his target in one go, but the follow-up verification work needed to be done bit by bit. His fingers moved down from Beishan Shuahui's head to her neck and shoulders, as well as the slightly exposed skin of her chest, in a circular motion. During this time, Beishan Shuahui, who was lying on the tatami, had her fingers and toes twitching. She seemed to be resisting, but she was more like a machine that had lost its power source. She was unable to complete a complete movement. She could only let Luo Nan do as he pleased. All of this fell into Yinlu's eyes. She gaped, but she couldn't help but think of the problem of having 3 helpers. But right now, she decided to be mute for the time being. After touching for a while, Luo Nan didn't even turn his head. He waved his hand at Yinlu. You come touch as well. After a moment of stupefaction, Yinlu earnestly performed her duties as a secretary. She listened to her boss's words and walked to the other side of Beishan Shuahui's lying body. She knelt on one knee and extended her hand to touch the snow-white skin. Luo Nan pointed from the side. Don't just touch her chest. Touch her face as well. Don't you feel that her body is a bit skinnier, but her face is a bit more vivid? Yinlu's emotions were complicated. She exerted a bit of force with her fingers. This way, she could feel the subtle differences brought about by the different amounts of fat under the skin. Of course, there were natural differences between the face and the chest, but there was no point in nitpicking in this kind of situation. Are there any traces of a disguise? It seems like you women are very good at makeup. Yinlu had a tendency to immerse herself in the situation for a moment. Luckily, she quickly regained her composure and spoke in a matter-of-fact manner. Her foundation is very good. It's just that she's wearing light makeup. It's unlikely that she's using the head-swapping technique. Of course, it's also possible that she's had plastic surgery or wore some sort of prosthesis. It's technically possible, but it needs to be tested. Tested? Like X-rays or something. More or less. If it's the skin and muscle structure, we might need an MRI. At this time, Yinlu finally couldn't hold it in any longer. She voiced out the conjecture that was previously denied by rationality. Sir, you suspect that this Beishan Shuhui is that? Yin Guang was halfway through his words when he suddenly felt his lips and teeth go numb. It was as if an extremely penetrating cold wind had blown through the air. And on the other side, Luo Nan had opened his hand. His 5 fingers closed together as he probed towards Beishan Shui's face, slowly moving up and down. Right now, Luo Nan was staring at Beishan Shuhui, and Beishan Shuhui's empty eyes were staring back at Luo Nan's face. The two stared at each other through the palm of their hands. Their line of sight was blocked, and they didn't say a word. It was extremely treacherous and bewitching. Sir. Yinlu didn't receive a response. She could only stare wide-eyed at Luo Nan's incomprehensible operation. Luo Nan slightly narrowed his eyes. The mental plane and the material plane interfered effectively. He borrowed the palm of his fingers to build a basic electromagnetic configuration framework. He accelerated the cycling frequency of the electromagnetic wave, pushing it into the field of ionizing radiation in one fell swoop. It formed an extremely short wavelength, extremely high-energy X-ray. Under the effective binding, the X-ray continuously bombarded the structure of Beishan Shuahui's face. Luo Nan watched the X-ray penetrate and destroy the skin, muscles, and bones, and he received immediate feedback. Several seconds later, Luo Nan shook his head. The X-ray's penetrative power was too strong for the detection of soft tissues. The detection results weren't that great. MR, on the other hand, involved requirements such as the high-speed switching of the gradient field and the detection of the state of the hydrogen atom. Configuration changes and the precision of the mental senses were all big problems. Oh, it seems like the UV level is just right? What? The absorption rate and the reflectivity are clearly different. This is a sun-blocking prosthesis. What good luck. 10 seconds later, Luo Nan was certain in his heart. He nodded slightly. There really is a layer of prosthesis, but the fusion is quite tight. It looks like a special key is needed. It should be the special characteristics of that person's soul strength. As he spoke, his mind had already cut into the cloud world. He carefully observed the target's soul body over there. I remember simulating it once or twice in the past. Luo Nan's training in the high-end imitation show on the Pacific Ocean had displayed its use. Perhaps Luo Nan couldn't change the essence of his soul, but he could use his outstanding configuration skills to precisely interfere and transform the material and mental environment. He could disrupt the transmission and reception of information, achieving the objective effect of passing off the fake as the real thing. He could perfectly imitate the mode of operation of that old geezer Gong Chi's soul strength. It would only be easier if he lowered it by 1 or 2 levels. The prosthesis that Luo Nan locked onto was the newest, deceived. Luo Nan's suspended palm descended, lightly imprinting itself between Beishan Shuahui's eyebrows. When he raised his hand, Luo Nan's naturally closed 5 fingers had already gently peeled off a layer of marvelous fog-like creation. At this moment, the light and shadow of Beishan Shuahui's palm-sized face were blurred. It was as if a layer of floating mist had been blown away. It was clearly the same silhouette, but the appearance that appeared before Luo Nan's eyes was vastly different. The most obvious change was that Beishan Shuahui's cheeks had become thinner. Her cheekbones were higher, her eyes had become slightly longer, her eyebrows had become thin and sharp, and her face had become excessively straight. This caused the structure of her facial features to become more three-dimensional, and she appeared much colder and sharper. This was a great change in temperament. She might still be considered a beauty right now, but she had instantly transformed from an elegant and exquisite doll that could be picked up and played with in one's hand. She had turned into a cast-iron sculpture that had fallen to the ground, but there were still remnants of her dignified bearing. It was to the extent that her basic silhouette hadn't completely changed, but she looked like a completely different person. Actually, there was a large difference between this appearance and the spellcaster who had appeared in the form of a spirit body back at Ocean Sky Cloud City. It was probably the difference between quick-wittedness and rigidity. But no matter what, Beishan Shuahui, who had changed her temperament, already matched the image on the information nearly perfectly. Snake tongue. Inla let out a low cry. She gasped in admiration, but she was even more astonished. She looked at Luo Nan's series of operations in a state of extreme astonishment. Especially the bewildering and suffocatingly fast deciphering method in the latter half of the process. It displayed a new special ability that Luo Nan had never displayed before others. The simulation of soul strength was one thing. Though they couldn't understand it, everyone knew of Luo Nan's exceptional talent in the mental side. But how was he able to produce, control, and detect various types of ionizing radiation? This should be an ability that could probe down to the microscopic level. Don't look at this sort of small task that could be easily completed by professional instruments. It didn't matter if it was practical or not. The number of ability users in the entire world who could do it with their bare hands was probably just a handful of fingers and toes. And they were undoubtedly the tight combination of super strength and super talent. They didn't even cross the bottom line of being extraordinary. Any one of them was an influential figure that could shake the entire earth with just a stomp of their feet. Oh, there was one exception. He had died not too long ago. It was Jean Tong, who was buried within the material structure of the Blood Soul Temple. His corpse was nowhere to be seen. It was basically confirmed that he had fallen to Luo Nan's hands. Combined with Luo Nan's special requirements for the energy center, Yinla couldn't help but let her thoughts fly. She unfolded a series of complex associations, and at the same time, she bore the corresponding throbbing emotions of her thoughts. Luo Nan was stronger than she had estimated. He was much stronger. Chapter 743. Chapter 463. The Truth. What is this? Luo Nan lightly clenched his fist. The strange object in his palm was like a semi-condensed mist. It was none other than the prosthetic body he had peeled off from Snake Tongue's cheek. It felt substantial to the touch, like a ball of fine yarn, but when he let go of it, it could float in the air on its own. Moreover, it could continuously absorb water from the air. When it absorbed a certain amount, he could even hear the gurgling sound of water. When it accumulated to a certain stage, it began to evaporate and disperse. It was very interesting. Of course, the most amazing thing about it was that it could seamlessly fuse with the flesh and blood of the human body under the interference of soul force, forming a layer of natural skin that was transparent from inside out. The structure of the pores, blood vessels, and other structures could all be flawless. It was simply a divine tool for disguising one's appearance. The information on Snake Tongue didn't contain any similar information. However, such a special object was also famous in the inner world, so Yinla definitely knew about it. It should be the Veil of Concealment. Due to its special material and effects, it is publicly recognized as a strange object that doesn't belong to this era. Luo Nan blinked. This is the Veil of Concealment? The one that is on par with the Veil of Silence, in the hands of the Deputy Secretary General of the headquarters, Gong Qi. He had seen similar words when he was tracking and monitoring in the cloud, but he didn't have a deep memory of it. Yinla was very familiar with it. Yes. The muslin of concealment conceals one's appearance, while the muslin of silence conceals one's spiritual body. It is said that the combination of the two is the complete appearance of the mystical creature. It is said that it can completely hide a person's traces in the world. Even if an extraordinary is nearby, they will not be able to detect it. It can be said to be one of the strongest assassination tools. No wonder. Luo Nan muttered to himself. In this way, Snake Tongue's participation in the hostile actions against him had a direct relationship of interest. Looking at the subsequent developments, it was clear that Gong Qi had only thrown out the bait and had no intention of letting it go. Perhaps he had the intention of fishing back. However, that old thing did not expect that the little fish would be eaten by the big fish after eating the bait. As a result, he was directly pulled into the puddle, unable to struggle out. Luo Nan subconsciously squeezed the mass of mist until his palm became moist and beads of water dripped down. Only then did he loosen his grip. Seeing that he was lost in thought, Yinla curiously asked, "Sir, what did you say?" "Oh, it's nothing. I'm just curious how this thing was made." It's precisely because they can't understand that they're called not belonging to this era. Many people believe that it isn't a man-made product, but rather a natural product from a plane like the Deep Blue World, or perhaps a special remnant of a dead mutant. When did the Veil of Concealment and the Veil of Silence separate? Well, it seems like it has always been in a separate state. Then how can you be sure that they are a set? Yinlu was in a sorry state after being attacked by the curious baby. She could only make guesses. It's probably from the function, and the appearance is indeed similar. Oh. In the end, Luo Nan didn't ask any further questions. He just squeezed the watery muslin in his hand a couple more times before letting go. He let the muslin of concealment float in the air, and his attention returned to Snake Tongue, who had already revealed her true appearance. Yinla sighed inwardly. She half changed the topic and half sighed ruefully. Snake Tongue's move is like the legendary painted skin story. No, if it's in Ban City, it should be the legend of the Bone Lady. Bone Lady? It's the folklore of the archipelago. The general idea is that a woman who was humiliated and bullied in her life would turn into a malicious ghost after her death in anger. Because her flesh and blood would turn to ash, only a pile of bones would remain. Therefore, she would use the skin of a beautiful woman to disguise herself and take revenge on men with vile characters. Hee. Snake Tongue isn't someone who was humiliated and bullied. Of course, it's hard to say now. Yinlu blinked. She still didn't quite understand Luo Nan's words. However, she was soon ordered by Luo Nan to search the entire residence for all sorts of clues. As for Luo Nan himself, he remained at the mysterious gate. He sat on the tatami in front of Snake Tongue, his chin resting on his hand as he pondered. Yin Lu, who was searching the residence, passed by the living room a few times. Luo Nan didn't always maintain that posture. He had already opened the virtual work area, observing and drawing Snake Tongue. That's right. He was using Snake Tongue as a model, a continuous sketch or sketch. It was most likely the latter. This was because Luo Nan had changed locations several times in a short period of time. The angle of the drawing in the virtual work area was constantly changing. On the other hand, Snake Tongue kept twitching in place until she exhausted the last bit of her strength. She fell completely limp before Luo Nan's eyes. Yin Lu couldn't help but feel that if she had a video camera in her hands, she would be able to completely record the scene from before. She wouldn't need to edit it at all. It could be considered a horror film. She was really unable to understand Luo Nan's logic. She could only earnestly do what Luo Nan had arranged. She wandered around the various areas of the residence for around half an hour before returning to report. Sir, we've discovered a life support system in the basement. There's also an ice coffin. The reserve nutrient fluid within the oxygen chamber and the automatic circulation system have been completely used up. The ice coffin hasn't been used yet. And there's a curse barrier in the basement, but it has already lost effectiveness. There are also traces of rattan roots piercing through. Some of them were used for coordination, so the traces are relatively old. Some of them were used for destruction, so the traces are relatively new. So, Yin Lu paused for a moment. She saw that Luo Nan didn't express anything, so she continued speaking, so I have a preliminary guess. Snake Tongue and that Mr. Journeyman once had a close cooperative relationship. Snake Tongue helped Journeyman awaken his soul and regulate his energy. And Journeyman provided protection and nutrients to Snake Tongue's body after her out-of-body state. However, Snake Tongue's out-of-body state this time was far too long. It exceeded the normal range, causing Mr. Journeyman, who protects Sakura City, to develop some sort of malice. At the very least, he slacked off in his work related to providing nutrients. Luo Nan didn't comment on the logic of Yin Li's speculations. He just mentioned, there's also the Myriad Spirit Order. Yes, there's also the Myriad Spirit Order. Yin Lu didn't make a light judgment on this matter. The clues were truly too tangled. The incantation Snake Tongue chanted was the common prayer of this order. And then Journeyman appeared and killed a high-ranking officer of this order. And this high-ranking officer was someone who cultivated under the tree for a long time. It seemed that he had a close relationship with Journeyman. Then, I'll arrange for people to clearly investigate the situation with the Myriad Spirit Order. Yin Lu inquired probingly. Luo Nan still didn't comment. Yin Lu was a bit confused, but there were some things she needed to report. There's also information related to Mr. Beishan's car. It's a Falcon-class commercial car that people of the underworld like to use. It's parked in the underground parking lot of Ishikawa Real Estate in Sakura City all year round. It's rarely used, and the property does maintenance once a year. There's some truth to the gossip in the residential area. Starting from 4 years ago, the Falcon-class commercial car would drive out for a week every month. Its destination is this residence. But the people driving are different every time. According to the registration information, they belong to different driving service companies. They're hired to do things, and they're contacted online every time. There's very little information left behind. As for the deeper details, we'll look for the hired drivers to confirm. Luo Nan went, okay. Then he shook his head. Mister? Yin Lu was about to be crushed by her doubt into depression. The rest are just insignificant details. Luo Nan extended his hand and fiddled back and forth in the virtual work area. The dozen or so sketches he had done revolving around Snake Tongue in the past half hour were switched back and forth with the movements of his fingers. His hands moved, and he spoke absent-mindedly. Right now, we can basically confirm that Snake Tongue has North Shanshuo's identity. She's managed a hiding lair for herself. What role does Wu Wei Men play here? What role does the Myriad Spirit Order play? How did that car get arranged? Is the real North Shanshuo dead? Or is she Snake Tongue's hidden identity to begin with? There are many details to dig into. The deeper you dig, the more you can see its exquisite and ingenious structure. But so what? Then, we're already here, aren't we? All of Snake Tongue's disguises have lost their meaning. Her suspected collaborator, Mr. Zhuo Wei Men, has also given up on this place. We hold her life and death in our hands. Right now, we just need to cover her nose and mouth, and all of her efforts will turn to ashes. Yinlu was speechless. It was true that Luo Nan's tone was absent-mindedly, but she couldn't mistake his particularly serious gaze. She didn't doubt in the slightest that this youth would carry out these words without the slightest hesitation if necessary. From this, it could be seen just how intense Luo Nan's hatred toward Snake Tongue was. All of this was because of the building in Xia City known as the North Shore Gear. No, it would be more accurate to say that it was because of the deep foundation of Luo Nan's core, the concept mask. It was a special familial love that he longed for immensely but was destined to never be able to recover. Yinlu lowered her gaze. She didn't dare to look Luo Nan in the eye, but Luo Nan's voice continued to transmit into her mind. Snake Tongue has done everything perfectly. Full marks for logistics arrangements. Excellent tactical design. However, she made a fatal error in her judgment of the most crucial link of the overall situation. She didn't clearly see the mission provider at the start. She misjudged the ultimate goal of the mission at the end, which was me. The start and the end were a complete mess. She didn't have a way to deal with a powerful enemy that transcends her scope. Her judgment of the overall situation was naturally abysmal. So what if the details in the middle were perfect? Yinlu raised her eyelids slightly and her lips parted slightly. She wanted to say something along the lines of, "Mr. is right." But what she saw next was Luo Nan pulling out different sketches one after another from the virtual work area. Some of them had concrete images. Some of them were just abstract silhouettes. In total, there were over 20 sketches. Right when she was baffled, she saw Luo Nan wave his hand in a casual manner. The vast majority of these sketches in the virtual work area flared with the special effect of flames. Then they were annihilated into nothingness. This was a sign that the system had completely deleted them. Mr. Yinlu was completely confused. Yinjian isn't far. You need to take this as a warning. Luo Nan's eyes were exceptionally bright and clear before the flames ignited in the virtual work area. He laughed once more. I was lazy and didn't add the most important parameter. Luckily, I haven't handed in my homework yet. Otherwise, it would really be ugly. Luo Nan spoke words that Yinlu didn't understand at all. He stood up and walked outside. Let's go. We need to work overtime tonight. Yinlu completely gave up on understanding Luo Nan's thoughts. She just followed him. But when she saw Snake Tongue lying at the edge of the entrance, she couldn't help but ask for instructions. I'll send people to move Snake Tongue. No. Don't worry about her. Luo Nan waved his hand and the veil of concealment, which was floating beside him, was cast back onto Snake Tongue's face. It automatically followed the previous settings and transformed into Northmont Shuahui's exquisite and enchanting face. Even though I don't want to say it, it's really too much of a pity to destroy such an exquisite and ingenious setup. Don't you think so? You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.